Chapter 281 The Deranged Cao Tianyi. Qianming was cultivating bitterly in the valley, and Chuzan would occasionally pay attention to him. In order to raise Qianming's strength as soon as possible, he had given him a lot of treasures. 1 month later, Qianming's cultivation reached the 3rd level of the emperor level. His strength had increased 100-fold. His natural talent had been stimulating, and he was cultivating very diligently. He set a goal for himself. After reaching the 9th level of the Emperor realm, he would come out of secluded cultivation to temper himself. Then, he would find a large organization and spread the communication talismans. Du Yuan had broken through to the divine realm. Moreover, he had advanced to the 3rd level of the divine realm, however, this was his current limit. If he continued his rapid advance, it would affect his cultivation foundation and make it unstable. Still, this was sufficient for now. The cultivation techniques and secret techniques he cultivated were all powerful techniques given to him by Chu Xian. Moreover, he also had the trump card that Chuzan had given him. It would not be a problem for him to deal with someone at the 5th or 6th level of the divine realm. The evil son from the great evil palace had split a wisp of his soul to reincarnate. Thus, his strength would not exceed the 5th level of the divine realm, and might in fact be weaker. After Du Yuan left, he went to look for the little evil king and then brought him to the chaos zone. A new creature of the Great Tao had suddenly appeared in the Great Tao communication group. Huang Long had dragged it in and, in terms of age, it was slightly older than Huang Long. Chuzan checked the other party's information. Yi Yujun, a Great Tao creature. The 10-winged hell-devouring rock. It can control darkness and devour all things, as long as darkness doesn't disappear, and the hell-devouring rock won't die. Chuzan sighed. These creatures of the Great Tao were really awesome in the sense that they were almost immortal. They were almost immortal. Their only weakness was that they could not leave the Great Tao and were lonely. After Yi Yujun entered the group, it naturally attracted the worship of the Tao realm experts. Ying Kong was undoubtedly the most proactive and the one who flattered it most. Dong. Half a year later, another muffled sound rang out throughout the world. All of the 9 zones, cultivators knew that the world was about to change. 3 days after this muffled sound, a strange beam of light shot into the sky from the desolate ancient zone. The divine realm experts within the 8 zones all rushed to the desolate ancient zone at this moment. There was a supreme treasure there. Ren Chang asked Chuzan if he should participate. Chuzan asked him to take some things to the desolate ancient zone and bury them in some random places. Besides the divine realm experts, some famous peak heaven realm experts also rushed to the desolate ancient zone. Du Yuan did not go. He stayed with the little evil king in the chaos zone. With Du Yuan backing him up, the little evil king developed quickly in the chaos zone, while also distributing the communication talismans. He established a faction called the Evil Warding Palace, that did not restrict membership based on race. The Evil Warding Palace's communication talismans became popular in the chaos zone. More and more cultivators joined their ranks, forcing the little evil king to set benchmark requirements for joining. Although he was only at the 1st level of the Supreme Realm, with Du Yuan's support, the experts who came to join them did not dare to act recklessly. They thought that the little evil king was the descendant of some mighty expert who was building a force, a divine realm expert. Since most of the divine realm experts had gone to the desolate ancient zone, Du Yuan was basically the strongest existence in the chaos zone. Although he kept a low profile and did not attack those below the divine realm, no one dared to make the little evil king unhappy. The evil warding palace grew rapidly, and the little evil king began to ask people to pay attention to and search for treasures that could restore the limbs and organs. In an underground cave in the desolate ancient zone, a strange light flashed and treasures filled the cave. A pool of water was surrounded by mist, and wisps of colorful light could be seen flashing within. 2 figures sat cross-legged in the pool. Cao Tianyi. A person was lying on the side of the pool. Blood flowed out of his body and into the pool. Mo Hongliu. The 2 figures in the pool started to merge. They were Cao Tianyi and his divine realm body. Mo Hongliu glared at Cao Tianyi in the pond with resentment. He gritted his teeth and said, "Scoundrel Cao, you're ruthless." He had been tricked. He had never expected that Cao Tianyi would hide such a trick. The moment he merged with his own divine realm body, Cao Tianyi suddenly suppressed him. Cao Tianyi devoured his cultivation and merged with his divine realm body. He wanted to use this opportunity to break through. Even so, Mo Hongliu did not know if Cao Tianyi could break through the shackles of the divine realm. Still, without a doubt, Cao Tianyi's strength would increase dramatically. At their peak, both Cao Tianyi and Mo Hongliu were considered peak divine realm experts. Cao Tianyi did not say anything. He completely ignored Mo Hongliu's resentment. Cao Tianyi, karma will strike you. Mo Hongliu's heart was filled with hatred. Brother Mo, don't be like that. We're not actual friends, you know. Why can't you accept this result? Cao Tianyi calmly said, I believe that if Brother Mo had the same chance, and the same secret technique, you would have also chosen to do the same. I was just one step ahead of you. Mo Hongliu remained silent. After a long while, he coldly said, Brother Cao is right. I am just unwilling. Then, he coldly smiled and said, Brother Cao, don't think that you will really get what you want. Although I have lost, it is not to the extent that I only have this little bit of ability. Although my death is a foregone conclusion, I still have some tricks to play. Cao Tian opened his eyes. At this moment, he had almost completely fused with his divine body. He was just a tiny bit away. Wang, Cao Tian raised his hand and a golden light bloomed. As he had yet to completely fuse with his divine body, his movements were somewhat delayed. He would never underestimate Mo Hongliu. Hence, in order to ensure that he was safe, he decisively attacked, wanting to kill the latter. However, Mo Hongliu's divine soul floated out of his body. A gloomy voice spoke up, Brother Cao devoured my cultivation very quickly, right? My blood tastes good, right? I'll give you my divine soul as well. Demonic chaos. Mo Hongliu shouted, and his divine soul emitted a black light that seemed to pollute it. With a boom, it exploded. The fragments of the divine soul poured into the pond and rushed into Cao Tianyi's body. Mo Hongliu's voice echoed in the cave, Brother Cao, I'll help you merge, haha. Damn it, Cao Tian roared. He was about to merge with his divine realm body, but now, thanks to Mo Hongliu's interference, it separated from him. Not only was his physical body separated, even his divine soul was separated. Moreover, it was being split into many divine souls. Shrouded by the black light, the separated physical body and the divine souls once again merged together. Cao Tianyi's face was distorted. He held his head with both hands and roared, enduring great pain. Mo Hongliu. Golden light blossomed and Cao Tianyi lay down in the pool. After an unknown amount of time, a head popped out from the pool. His eyes were slightly dazed, but at times, they were filled with madness and killing intent. What's my name? What should I do? Who is Mo Hongliu? I'm going to kill him. Why am I going to kill him? Whatever, I'm going to kill him. Cao Tianyi muttered to himself. He lay back in the pond. A few days later, he appeared again and continued to mutter to himself. The aura around Cao Tianyi's body also became stronger and stronger. His strength was rapidly increasing, and he had reached the limits of the divine realm. Who is Qin Ying? Why do I want to kill him? No, I admire him. Wait, why? Cao Tianyi muttered to himself. He was out of his mind. Chapter 282 Kingslayer. Desolate Ancient Zone, Fallen God Cave. Ren Chang placed an item within the Fallen God Cave. After that, he left and headed to other places. He wanted to complete the task Chuzan had given him. As for that strange light in the desolate ancient zone, that mattered not. Chuzan's instructions came first. No treasure could compare to it. The greatest opportunity in his life was meeting his master, Chuzan. Moreover, he did not lack treasures. Who else would have Dao artifacts while only being in the divine realm? Even divine realm experts from most human king families did not have Dao artifacts, but he did. He did not lack cultivation techniques or treasures either. After he had finished what Chuzan had asked him to do, he would go and take a look at the strange light out of curiosity. Ren Chang arrived at the peak of a mountain in the desolate ancient zone and inserted something into it. Suddenly, crazy words could be heard from not far away. Mo Hongliu, where are you? I'm going to kill you. Kill you, right, why should I kill you? Where's Qin Ying? Who is he? Why do I admire him a little? Ren Chang was stunned. Was this Cao Tianyi? What was going on? Why did it seem that he had gone crazy? Cao Tianyi. Cao Tianyi raised his head and saw Ren Chang. He felt that this person was a little familiar. Who is Cao Tianyi? Oh, are you Mo Hongliu? You must be. It's no wonder I don't like you. I want to kill you. Cao Tianyi roared. Golden light bloomed as he charged at Ren Chang. Ren Chang. Cao Tianyi had really gone mad. Could it be that Mo Hongliu had plotted against him, causing him to suffer a serious soul injury? Was this why he wanted to kill Mo Hongliu so badly? The moment Cao Tianyi made his move, Ren Chang was shocked. Too strong. Why was Cao Tianyi so strong? Even if he had fused with his divine realm body, he should not have been able to improve so quickly. Ren Cheng did not dare to be careless. He circulated his cultivation technique, and black and white qi surrounded him as he fought with Cao Tianyi. After Chu Zan's guidance and these years of bitter cultivation, Ren Chenghe's strength had reached the peak of the divine realm. However, Cao Tianyi was too strong. Ren Cheng was soon at a disadvantage and was forced to use his divine artifacts to fight the latter. Fortunately, Cao Tianyi had gone mad and could not fully display his strength. Even so, Ren Cheng still felt immense pressure. Unless he took out his Dao artifact, he would definitely be the one to lose eventually. After all, Cao Tianyi had already reached the limits of the divine realm. Cao Tianyi, I am not Mo Hongliu. You have mistaken me for someone else. Ren Cheng shouted angrily and used his soul secret technique, shaking Cao Tianyi's mind. Ha ha ha, I am Cao Tianyi. Yes, I am Cao Tianyi. That B***starred Mo Hongliu actually backstabbed me. Ha ha, didn't he die because of me in the end though? Cao Tianyi's soul was shaken awake. He seemed to have regained some consciousness and remembered some things. He then flew off for some unknown reason. Ren Cheng frowned. Cao Tianyi was way too powerful. Moreover, he was crazy. He could not predict what the latter would do. If he wanted to seek revenge from Qin Ying or the Luo family, there would be trouble. Thinking this, Ren Cheng took out the Myriad Zone's talisman and sent a message to Qin Ying about Cao Tianyi. In the desolate ancient zone, the news of an extremely powerful divine realm lunatic started spreading among the divine realm cultivators. That lunatic had killed another divine realm expert. This resulted in the divine realm experts who were searching for treasures in the desolate ancient zone to enter a state of unrest. They began to contact their friends and acquaintances to work together. They wanted to avoid being discovered and killed alone by that lunatic. The lunatic's strength was very terrifying. A 5th-level divine realm expert was killed not long after that. Moreover, according to rumors, the other party seemed to have devoured the qi and blood essence of the fallen person, as well as their divine Su. Sen, Cao Tianyi had gone mad. There was a high chance that there was something wrong with his divine soul. When Chu Zan heard the news, he was a little speechless. There was a high chance that Mo Hongliu was dead. The two definitely fell out. Cao Tianyi might have been one step ahead. Buddha also did not escape unscathed. Without a fortuitous encounter, he probably would not be able to recover. Chu Zan took out the Chaos Dao mirror and routinely searched for Dao realm and above experts. The image projection appeared, displaying an underground cave that was filled with corpses. Piles of bones had been cast into a high platform, on which there was a person sitting cross-legged. His hair was disheveled, his beard was messy, and his clothes were tattered. Beside him was a pale red saber. There was an extreme aura of killing intent surrounding him. His aura was different from that of other experts. Extreme Dao cultivator. Chu Zan was quite surprised. This time, he had actually discovered an extreme Dao cultivator. Looking at the extreme aura of killing intent around the other party's body, could it be that he cultivated the extreme Dao of slaughter? Slaughtering his way into the Dao. Although the killing intent around his body was extreme, it also had a slightly crazed tint to it. His comprehension of the extreme Dao seemed to have deviated. Looking at the high platform made of bones, one could see that countless experts had died at his hands. Among them, there were many Dao realm warriors. The information of the other party appeared on the Chaos Dao mirror. Kingslayer, an extreme Dao cultivator who has reached the 12th level of the Dao realm. He killed 3 kings, causing the extreme Dao to become forbidden in the 9 zones. Chu Zan was stunned. He killed 3 kings. He tapped on the Chaos Dao mirror realm to obtain more information about the other party. He killed the 3 kings of the human, demon and monster races, causing the 9 zones to longer have overlords. As a result of his actions, cultivation of the extreme Dao was forbidden, and any extreme Dao cultivator will be hunted down by the various factions. Ruthless. Chu Zan read through the information on the Kingslayer. This was a truly ruthless person. As expected of the extreme Dao of slaughter. However, he had gone astray and killed for the sake of killing. It was unknown when the 3 overlords of the 9 zones had vanished. There was no king of men, no king of demons, and no king of monsters. So the culprit was this fellow. His cultivation had reached the 12th level of the Dao realm, which was indicative of his talent. However, he should have reached a bottleneck by now as his cultivation of the extreme Dao of slaughter had gone astray. Killing for the sake of killing. The extreme Dao was extreme, but not in that sense. Was the extreme Dao forbidden in the 9 zones? Chu Pingfan cultivated the extreme Tao. Although it was not the extreme Tao of slaughter, it was still an extreme Tao. Would he be hunted down by the various major powers? The northern zone was a bit more remote. Also, a lot of time had passed since then, which was probably why Chu Pingfan was not hunted down. Chu Zan smiled. Chu Pingfan's extreme Tao cultivation was passed down to him by Chu Zan. Who would dare to not tolerate it? If anyone targeted Chu Pingfan because he cultivated the extreme Tao, he would not mind showing off a little bit to warn people. Kingslayer was interesting. However, Chu Zan did not know which human king he had killed. Chu Zan directly moved him into the Great Tao communication group. Kingslayer, who was sitting upright on the high platform, suddenly opened his eyes. His killing intent soared into the sky. He held the pale red saber in his hand. Chapter 283 Extreme Tao of Slaughter. Who is it? Kingslayer shouted in a low voice. Chu Zan could not be bothered to reply. He was not a Daoyuan realm expert anyway. In the Great Tao communication group, he said, let's welcome our new young friend, Kingslayer, who has reached the 12th level of the Tao realm. Kingslayer. Ying Kong was the first to speak up. His Tao aura condensed into a series of terrified expressions. Kingslayer was silent. After checking out the Great Tao communication group, he realized that he had ended up in a terrifying place. There were many Tao realm experts here. Moreover, there were even some legendary Daoyuan realm experts. When he looked at those Tao realm experts, his first thought was, if I kill all of them, will I be able to break through? To what extent will my strength increase? In the Great Tao communication group, there were also a few people who cried out in surprise. It seemed that Kingslayer was very famous. The others in the group who did not know of Kingslayer began to ask curious questions about him. He is a bloodthirsty maniac. The moment he entered the primordial land, he killed a Tao realm cultivator without any regard for his life. Over the past million years, who knows how many people have died at his hands, Ying Kong said while trembling. His level of talent was not as high as the Kingslayer, and he was slightly younger as well. However, he had heard of the Kingslayer's deeds in the 9 zones in the primordial land. He once killed the human king Feng Kong, Ying Kong said. Oh, he killed a human king? Luo Xinbai asked coldly. He was once a human king, so he naturally understood what the human king represented. Every human king had to have done great deeds for the human race in order to become a human king. As a human, Kingslayer actually killed a human king. That was equivalent to betraying the human race. He also killed the demon king and the monster king, Ying Kong continued. Everyone in the group gasped. Kingslayer was truly a madman. It was no wonder he was called Kingslayer. FCK, he had killed the kings of the 3 overlord races. In addition, he had survived until today, which meant that he was quite capable. Very good, since you dare to kill the king of the demon race, you must be killed. A demon race Tao realm expert said coldly. A monster race Tao realm expert also spoke up after that. Kingslayer finally spoke. Very good, your name is Ying Kong, right? I will definitely kill you. Ying Kong was immediately frightened and trembled. He hurriedly cried out for help, Ancestor Hong, save me. This madman wants to kill me. Hong Yuanchu spoke, the path Kingslayer cultivates is the extreme Tao of slaughter. What a pity though, for you have gone astray. Mo Tu also opened his mouth and said, Old Ghost Hong, this human brat, is indeed very talented. Furthermore, he cultivates the extreme Tao of slaughter. It's a pity that he has gone astray and very soon will be expelled by the Great Tao. He looked as if he was gloating over someone else's misfortune. Kun he also opened his mouth and said, what a pity indeed. Kingslayer's heart trembled violently. Could it be that he had really gone astray? Ever since he had broken through to the 12th level of the Tao realm, no matter how hard he tried, he had been unable to advance any further. Furthermore, there seemed to be some problems plaguing his cultivation. Occasionally, he would even feel a disconnect from the Great Tao. At first, he thought that it was because he had not killed enough. In the end, the more he killed, the more unstable he became. For this reason, he could only focus on cultivating in seclusion while trying to solve this problem. However, he never succeeded in doing so. Kingslayer did not doubt the words of Hong Yuanchu and the others. After all, they were legendary Daoyuan realm experts. After a long silence, he asked, have I really gone astray? You have indeed gone astray. Hong Yuanchu shook his head and sighed, you have gone astray ever since you killed the 3 kings. He then added, it's not that you shouldn't kill them, but rather the reason why you killed them. Did you have any enmity with the monster king? Kingslayer shook his head. Do you have any enmity with the Demon King? Kingslayer also shook his head. Hong Yuanchu said, these two kings are not from our race. Even if there is no enmity, you can say that you killed them for the sake of my human race. Mo Tu and the soaring flood dragon king were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Detestable old ghost Hong, did you have enmity with the human king? Did he make a huge mistake? Kingslayer shook his head. If that's the case, why did you kill him? I did it to cultivate the extreme Tao. Kingslayer's eyes were filled with confusion. Could it be that I was wrong back then? Then, his eyes were filled with determination. No, he was not wrong. After killing the three kings, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Since you say that I have gone astray, then senior, how have I gone astray? Kingslayer was obviously not convinced. Moreover, his tone was slightly arrogant. Hong Yuanchu was momentarily silent before saying, I have discussed the path of the extreme Tao with someone and have fought with him before. I only know that the extreme Tao is a very special path. Although I know that you have gone astray, I do not know exactly how you have gone astray. It was true that he was a Daoyuan realm expert, but he did not know everything. If it was related to an ordinary Tao, he would naturally know more, but the extreme Tao was very special. Those who did not cultivate the extreme Tao would not know its intricacies. Then I am not wrong. Kingslayer said firmly. It had to be that he had not killed enough. Only if he killed enough would he undergo a transformation and become stronger. Chu Zan had no choice but to speak up. The path Kingslayer was treading was really a little crazy. If he continued on like this, his mind would probably be filled with thoughts of how to kill the people in the Great Tao Communication Group. However, he had deceived himself and lost himself to the path of slaughter. The extreme Tao is indeed an extreme path. However, your comprehension of the term, extreme, is faulty. My young friend, you have mistaken the path of extreme Tao as the path of madness. The extreme Tao of slaughter is about cultivating extreme killing intent, but it is to be used to kill one's enemies, not everyone and anyone for no reason. Kingslayer's heart shook violently as he muttered to himself, the extreme Tao of slaughter isn't to kill for the sake of killing. Hong Yuanchu and the others were full of admiration. As expected of Taoist brother Chu, he had even comprehended the extreme Tao so clearly. What Taoist brother Chu said is true. Hong Yuanchu sighed. Then, Mo Tu and the other Daoyuan realm experts began to flatter him. Of course, this was because they wanted to get more information about the great calamity from him. It was like a sword hanging above their heads, and they were plagued by it day and night. Chu Zan ignored the flatterers and continued, my young friend Kingslayer, you seem to have increased your strength in a short period of time by using some extreme methods. However, you are now stuck at the 12th level of the Tao realm. You can't advance any further, can you? Also, your extreme Tao of slaughter is unstable and even getting out of control, isn't it? Kingslayer was even more shocked. This was a real super big shot. He said respectfully, yes, senior. I hope you can give me some guidance. His Tao aura condensed into his appearance and kowtowed to Chu Zan. Your extreme Tao is out of control. This means that you have been rejected by the great Tao and have even suffered a backlash. Since you have joined this group, I will give you some pointers. Chu Zan thought that giving pointers to Kingslayer was a good thing. Kingslayer was an extreme Tao cultivator. Given the nature of his extreme Tao, he would definitely enter the great Daoyuan calamity when it became more intense. He could also use Kingslayer to plant a seed to create a foothold in the primordial land. Your extreme Tao is the extreme Tao of slaughter. It is rather special. I will give you a private lecture. Thank you, senior. Kingslayer was extremely excited. Chapter 284 Whoever disrespects Senior Chu, I will kill them. Although Chu Zan did not cultivate the extreme Tao of slaughter, he had been instilled with knowledge of the extreme Tao, which he had passed down to Chu Pingfan. Moreover, given his comprehension of the great Tao, he was more than capable of guiding Kingslayer. After all, the absolute beginning Tao scripture was not an ordinary cultivation method. Chu Zan privately messaged Kingslayer. All of the Tao realm cultivators in the Great Tao Communication Group were extremely envious. The opportunity to receive guidance from the mysterious group leader personally was truly great. Hong Yuanchu and the others were also thinking their own thoughts. Perhaps they could find an opportunity to discuss Kingslayer's path with Taoist brother Chu. Kingslayer was a pure person. His heart was only focused on cultivation, and on how to strengthen the extreme Tao of slaughter. He was a person who was easy to fool. Even if Chu Zan refused to admit it, he now considered himself Chu Zan's disciple. He would kill anyone who insulted his master, even if he had to die doing so. He was truly a sincere person. Chuzan sighed endlessly and put him back on the right track to cultivate the extreme Tao. He also transmitted a very tiny wisp of chaotic energy to him. Even if it was just a tiny wisp, it was still an absolute treasure in the eyes of Tao realm cultivators. Even the Daoyuan realm experts would be very envious of this. Chaotic energy was a legendary treasure. Daoyuan realm experts would not be able to obtain them unless they discovered fortuitous opportunities. Chaotic energy was not only very effective in tempering and transforming Tao principles, it was also very helpful in opening one's Tao path. After giving guidance to Kingslayer, Chuzan said in the group chat, "Since you have joined the group, you are now a member here. I hope that you will not kill the others." The Tao realm cultivators in the group quickly nodded. Ying Kong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, given his limited cultivation level, Kingslayer could kill him with one strike. "When the time is right, I will preach the Tao in the group." Chuzan left a sentence and went silent. The Tao realm cultivators in the group were all very excited. The big shot was going to preach the Tao. What a great opportunity for them. Hong Yuanchu and the others were also full of expectation. Although they were Daoyuan realm experts, they were far inferior to Chuzan, the old senior. Kingslayer then said in the group chat, "Although Senior Chu doesn't acknowledge me as his disciple, his guidance has breathed new life into my cultivation. In my heart, Senior Chu is my master. If anyone dares to be disrespectful, I will definitely kill them." The group chat fell silent. All of the Tao realm experts cursed loudly in their hearts. Kingslayer was truly shameless. This was shameless bragging. However, their hearts were filled with jealousy. They were so envious. They also wanted to receive some pointers from Senior Chu. "We also want to brag shamelessly." "Then you have to work hard in your cultivation. Don't embarrass Senior Chu." "That's right. As a 12th level Tao realm cultivator, you are a little too weak. Work hard in your cultivation. Don't call yourself Senior Chu's disciple until you have the strength to back it up." How embarrassing. A few people in the group could not help but mock Kingslayer. Ying Kong's eyes were red with envy. He was the weakest in the group, so their comments indirectly burned him as well. "When will Senior give me some pointers? Could it be that my talent is so poor that Senior can't even be bothered to give me pointers?" Ying Kong felt like crying. "I'm indeed a piece of trash." Having successfully planted a seed in the primordial land, Chuzan was satisfied. It would take root sooner or later. It was about time to open a group for the Daoyuan realm experts. Only when the heavenly Tao laws fully encompassed the northern zone would the grand plan truly begin. The northern zone was the starting point. In the northern zone, after the laws changed, the speed of cultivation increased, causing cultivators to develop a sense of reverence toward the heavenly Tao laws. There was even a new trend related to this. Before cultivators broke through bottlenecks, they would take a bath and burn incense, praying for the heavenly Tao laws to take care of them and allow them to break through smoothly. As the overall strength of cultivators increased, the heavenly Tao laws were strengthened as well. Chuzan also benefited from this, gaining more insights into the great Tao while also obtaining new Tao principles. Although Chuzan had not reached the Daoyuan realm, he had sufficient understanding of how to open up a Tao path. Moreover, what he wanted to open up was not an ordinary Tao path, but a miniature version of the Great Tao, which he hoped would become as powerful as the Great Tao of today. The northern zone was very calm. There were very few battles as the cultivators were all preparing for the Great Daoyuan calamity, seeking to strengthen themselves before its advent. The Great Qin dynasty was also developing, and its strength as a nation was continuously increasing. The development of the Black Moon Tower in the eastern zone was also going well. Communication talismans sold well within the eastern zone, and sales had started to expand to the other regions in the eastern zone. Most Divine Realm experts now had one or more myriad zones talisman, which made it convenient for them to communicate with each other. Through these talismans, Chuzan knew the movements of these Divine Realm experts like the back of his hand. For example, a few Divine Realm experts had besieged and attacked Cao Tianyi recently. However, they failed to achieve their objective. Cao Tianyi had reached the limits of the Divine Realm, and was too strong. The Divine Realm experts were wounded and forced to retreat. That strange light from the desolate ancient zone came from a strange mountain. At present, the Divine Realm experts were gathering and preparing to explore that mountain. The mountain peak was covered by a layer of mysterious energy, preventing them from entering. This was evidence that there was definitely something inside this mountain. It might even be the way to surpass the Divine Realm. The thought of this made their hearts burn with passion. Southern Zone. Shangxing had defeated Feng Xiaoqing in a battle. His name shook the Southern Zone, and he became the newly acclaimed #1 genius of the Southern Zone. He had also successfully learned the whereabouts of his mother from Feng Xiaoqing. Feng Ruping was the younger sister of the previous patriarch of the Feng family. Now, she was being suppressed in the Feng family's forbidden land. The reason was very simple. Feng Ruping had once obtained a great opportunity in the desolate ancient zone and had obtained a legendary Dao fruit from it. However, she did not use it to save a certain patriarch of the Feng family. This caused the Feng family's elders to be dissatisfied. They felt that she had cut off the Feng family's path of ascension, and chose to suppress her in the forbidden land. Shangxing was the son of Feng Ruping, so they had wanted to hold him hostage to force Feng Ruping to hand over the Dao fruit. Shangxing knew that the Dao fruit had already been swallowed by his mother. The enmity between him and the Feng family had been sowed. A battle was inevitable. Even when faced with the pursuit of the Feng family's Heaven Realm elders, Shangxing still managed to escape with ease. He was waiting for the right moment to save his mother. The great Daoyuan calamity was coming. As a member of the Human King's family, the Feng family had to take action. Whether it was fighting for the human race, or for the Feng family itself, it was impossible for them to remain in seclusion forever. Shangxing was also waiting for a breakthrough. He was able to deal with the Feng family thanks to the help of Hua Ziying. Otherwise, Shangxing would have been captured several times. The Feng family also began to put pressure on the Shang family. Shangxing did not know who the ancestor that the Feng family wanted to save was, or how important he was. However, since the Dao fruit was obtained by his mother, she naturally had the right to do with it as she felt fit. The Feng family had gone too far. Chapter 285 Hua Ziying. Pressured by the Feng family, many forces began to put pressure on the Shang family. The influence of a Human King's family was revealed at this moment. Even if the Feng family was in a state of seclusion, it was still a Human King's family after all. Many of the Shang family's elders had not expected Shangxing to be Feng Ruping's son. They all put pressure on Shang Bang, the patriarch. In the end, not long after that, Shang Bang disappeared. The Shang family were faced with the might of the Feng family. After the family elders discussed things, they had no choice but to announce to the public that Shang Bang and his son were no longer members of the Shang family. Shang Bang's disappearance was beyond Shang Xing's expectations. He did not expect his father to suddenly disappear. It somehow seemed that his father was trying to avoid this matter. Or was there some other secret behind this matter? There was something else Shangxing could not understand. He had the bloodline of the Feng family, and his talent was so outstanding. Why did the Feng family still not compromise and accept him into their ranks? Why were they so obsessed with saving that Feng family patriarch? The bigger the family, the more they valued talent. All those with monstrous talent had very high statuses in the family. They would be valued and nurtured by the family elders, as they would become the family's future pillars. Inheritance and continuity were some of the most important factors for any force, especially for a family. After dealing with the Feng family for so long, Shangxing had never expected that they had a divine realm expert who had not gone to the desolate ancient zone. This divine realm elder of the Feng family personally captured him. Our Feng family's ancestors have been doing this for generations. Our only mission is to save the patriarch. This matter concerns the Feng family's lifeline. As the daughter of the Feng family, your mother was doted on. However, she was selfish and disregarded the patriarch. I will not kill you. However, you will come back to the Feng family with me and force your mother to hand over the Dao fruit. The Feng family's divine realm ancestor said coldly. Shangxing was silent. The Dao fruit had been eaten. How could his mother hand it over? Also, what was going on with the Feng family's patriarch? Let my mother go. Why is the Dao fruit such a big deal anyway? Shangxing said in a deep voice. What do you take a Dao fruit for? The Feng family ancestor roared angrily. Do you know how many powerful experts of our Feng family have fallen in the desolate ancient zone without obtaining a single Dao fruit? Your mother had a great fortune, but she actually took the Dao fruit for herself. Shangxing retorted coldly, I don't care about the Feng family's matters. Why are you so obsessed with that patriarch anyway? But since my mother obtained it, then she can do whatever she wants with it. If your heart doesn't belong to the Feng family, what's the point of keeping you alive? The Feng family's divine realm elder attacked angrily. Faced with a divine realm expert, Shangxing knew that he had no way of resisting. He was not afraid at all. So what if he died? He would just take it as returning his bloodline to the Feng family. After being reborn, his goal would be to destroy the Feng family. Boom! Suddenly, a beautiful figure appeared in front of him and started fighting with the Feng family's elder. Hua Xiang. Shangxing was stunned. Hua Xiang was actually a divine realm expert. Was she even older than he had expected? Hua Xiang, how dare you interfere in the affairs of my Feng family? The Feng family's divine realm elder roared angrily. Why, this little monster is fated to be with me. I can't bear to see him suffer. Besides, does your Feng family not want such a talented genius? Hua Xiang smiled lightly and said, is that Feng family's patriarch really that important? What do you know? The face of the Feng family's divine realm elder turned ferocious. Since you dare to interfere, then don't blame me for being merciless. Boom! Hua Xiang suddenly split into 13 clones. The real Hua Xiang appeared in front of Shangxing in an instant and grabbed him. Go! She escaped with Shangxing. 6 of the 12 clones that she split into suddenly shattered. The other 6 clones were severely injured and scattered in all directions. Hua Xiang's face turned pale. Fresh blood spurted out wildly, splashing all over Shangxing's head. In a secret area, Shangxing looked at Hua Xiang's pale face. Her breathing was all over the place. His lips quivered as he said, why did you bother with my matters? Even if I die, I'll just take it as returning my bloodline to the Feng family. Hey, don't worry, I won't die. Hua Xiang then spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. Shangxing hurriedly took out some pills. They were all divine pills. He stuffed them all into Hua Xiang's mouth. Little monster, you're really rich. You even have so many divine pills. Hua Xiang smiled, but then she said, it's useless. This is due to my cultivation technique. There's no cure for my injuries. Shangxing was silent. He thought of the myriad wonders 13 flowers. They were all Hua Xiang clones. Boom! Suddenly, Hua Xiang's soul shook, and blood spurted out again. Even if she had consumed divine pills, they were ineffective. NSU, 6 of her clones had died, and the other 6 had been severely injured. Her cultivation foundation had already been damaged. Little monster, I might be going into a deep sleep. Those 6 clones of mine that were severely injured, I've already dispersed them. I'll never be able to return to the divine realm again. I don't know how long I'll be in a deep sleep either. In the future, you'll have to rely on yourself. Hide. You're no match for the Feng family. As Hua Xiang spoke, she seemed to be in a daze. She looked at Shangxing, who was taking out pills and heavenly treasures. She smiled and said, don't bother. This is due to the backlash of my cultivation technique. There's no way to resolve it. I once obtained a cultivation technique from the desolate ancient zone. However, it has a huge flaw. None of your pills or treasures will be able to resolve it. The reason why I have 12 clones is because of the flaw in my cultivation technique. The clones and the original body are one body, but multiple wills. Moreover, when the wills become one, it will eventually affect the soul. Hua Xiang spoke intermittently. I don't know why, but I'm fated to be with a little monster like you. To think that in order to save you, I almost lost my life. Shangxing's face was covered in tears. In the past, he was very disgusted whenever he heard Hua Xiang called him a little monster and teased him. However, when he thought about it, he realized how much Hua Xiang cared for him. He was no longer the youth he was in the past. This time, when he returned to the southern zone, why did he look for Hua Xiang when he encountered difficulties? It was because deep within his consciousness, he considered Hua Xiang to be part of his family. She was someone he could trust. She would not hurt him. You will be fine. I will contact Master. Master will definitely be able to save you. Shangxing took out the Myriad Zone's talisman and contacted Chuzan. Unless something major happened, the disciples would not disturb him, their master. They were all brave enough to take risks. They would not think of relying on him to resolve their own problems. For Shangxing to suddenly contact him, something must have happened that required his help. He took out the Myriad Heavenly Mirror and connected it to Shangxing. Chuzan had left the Myriad Heavenly Mirror's mark on every disciple, as there were no longer any restrictions on the number of marks after his strength grew. When the image appeared, he saw Shangxing drenched in blood. Beside him, Hua Xiang was in a miserable state. Was the severe injury she had suffered due to the destruction of her clones, and the backlash from her cultivation technique? Looking at Shangxing's appearance, he knew that Hua Xiang was in such a miserable state because of him. It was no wonder Shangxing had come looking for him. He hoped that Shangxing would not be trapped by love. Chuzan thought that Ding Yu was still the purest fellow. He only had the sword in his heart. Love and women had nothing to do with him anymore. Chapter 286 The Secret of the Feng Family. Hua Xiang watched as Shangxing took out the Myriad Zone's talisman and said with a smile, "Little monster, there's no need to waste your time. It's useless. Even a peak divine realm expert wouldn't be able to save me." In her heart, no matter how powerful Shangxing's master was, he would at most be a peak divine realm expert. "Don't worry, my master will save you," Shangxing said steadfastly. A circle of light suddenly appeared, which startled Hua Xiang. Could the Feng family have pursued them all the way here? I have to try my best to get Shangxing out of here. She then saw Shangxing kneeling on the ground. "Greetings, master." The circle of light shimmered, revealing a figure sitting in a small courtyard. His body emitted dazzling seven-colored lights, and his imposing appearance seemed to shake the heavens themselves. Furthermore, it was as if the clothes on his body had been woven from strands of the great Tao. This was too terrifying. Hua Xiang's body collapsed to the ground. Her pale and pretty face was filled with astonishment. This was Shangxing's master. What kind of terrifying expert was this? "Why are you looking for me?" Shangxing kowtowed and said, "Master, please save her. She was grievously injured because of me." "Greetings, senior," Hua Xiang said with a trembling voice. The death of her clones and the backlash from her cultivation technique is a small matter. It is not worth mentioning. Chuzan said, "Her cultivation technique has a major flaw. It is not difficult to save her. However, what is your relationship with her? Do you need me to fix the flaws in her cultivation technique?" What was their relationship? Shangxing was stunned. He did not know what their relationship was. A lover, right? Not really. An older sister? That did not seem right either. "We have a very good relationship. Please fix the flaws in her cultivation technique, master," Shangxing said respectfully. Hua Xiang secretly rolled her eyes at Shangxing. Of course, she was not a young girl. Naturally, she was not displeased at Shangxing's lack of clarity about their relationship. After all, she herself was unsure as to what kind of relationship she had with Shangxing. Chuzan waved his hand, and a ray of light descended, enveloping Hua Xiang. Moments later, Hua Xiang felt her heavily injured soul recover to its peak state. Her injuries were completely healed. She was extremely shocked. What kind of terrifying existence was Shangxing's master? Was there even such a terrifying existence in the 9 zones? "Your cultivation technique has too many flaws. I will teach you a new cultivation technique that is in line with your current cultivation technique." As Chuzan spoke, he raised his hand and transmitted a cultivation technique to Hua Xiang. They were both clone-related cultivation techniques, but the one he passed on to her would allow her clones to possess almost equal strength with her original body. Although the number of clones with equal strength could not exceed 3, the death of a clone would not cause any harm to her original body. "Thank you, senior," Hua Xiang kowtowed respectfully. This cultivation technique was too powerful. It was probably more than 10 times stronger than the technique she had practiced before, right? Moreover, it did not have the flaws of her previous cultivation technique. With this technique, her strength would definitely increase, and she would be able to tread further on the path of the divine realm. Chuzan looked at Shangxing and asked, "How is your situation? Do you need me to resolve it for you?" Shangxing gritted his teeth and said with a determined gaze, "I wouldn't dare to trouble you with it, master. I will resolve it personally." Following that, he told Chuzan about everything that had happened between him and the Feng family in detail. Chuzan was stunned. The Feng family was trying their best to save a patriarch. Perhaps, was the Feng family's human king, Fengkong, the same one who had been killed by Kingslayer? Was he still alive, or was it a remnant of his soul? After all, he was a human king, so he naturally had some tricks up his sleeve. He probably had a contingency plan prepared for his fight with Kingslayer. However, he had not expected Kingslayer to be so powerful, and his contingency plan was found lacking, and barely allowed him to preserve his life. Chuzan was no longer a newbie. He knew quite a bit about the secrets of the 9 zones. Every human king was a Tao realm expert. In addition, every human king did not reign for long either. They would disappear from the 9 zones in less than 10,000 years. This was precisely because, like other Tao realm experts, they would sense some sort of mysterious pull from the desolate ancient primordial land. This was also why it was rumored that human kings would enter the desolate ancient zone and never return. This was one of the reasons why countless experts entered the desolate ancient zone. If the Feng family's human king could be saved, the Feng family would become the #1 family in the 9 zones, and they would rule over the human race. A human king would appear in the 9 zones again. This was the true reason why the Feng family wanted to save their patriarch. For some unknown reason, Shang Xing's mother had not used the Dao fruit to save Feng Kong. In any case, according to Chu Zan's judgment, a single Dao fruit would not be enough to save Feng Kong. He was, after all, a Dao realm expert. An injury that could leave a Dao realm expert on the brink of death was not something a single Dao fruit could resolve. It was likely that Shang Xing's mother had other plans. However, the matter of the Dao fruit was leaked, and she was suppressed by the Feng family. The patriarch of the Feng family you are talking about should be the human king, Feng Kong, Chu Zan said. Shang Xing and Hua Ziying were both shocked. The human king of the Feng family? Master, what do you mean? Shang Xing swallowed a mouthful of saliva. If that patriarch really was the human king of the Feng family, then it would all make sense as to why they were so desperate to save him. However, given how powerful the Feng family's human king was, why was he on the verge of death? Was the end of his lifespan approaching? This involves a certain secret, Chu Zan said. A million years ago, there was an expert in the 9 zones who cultivated the extreme Tao of slaughter. He once killed the human king, demon king, and monster king. After that, the 3 overlord races of the 9 zones no longer had kings. Feng Kong was the human king who should have been killed back then. He probably somehow preserved a wisp of his divine soul. A single Dao fruit would not be able to save him. Shang Xing and Hua Ziying were both shocked. Someone had once killed the kings of the overlord races. How powerful was that person? Master, you are saying that the reason why the Feng family is so concerned about the Dao fruit is to save that human king. If that's the case, if the human king recovers, then the Feng family. Shang Xing finally understood why the Feng family had been so angry that his mother had not used the Dao fruit to save the human king. If Feng Kong recovered, he would definitely be able to unify the southern zone, the other 4 human zones, and even the demon and monster zones. Did they want to unify the 9 zones? Even if he recovers, he will not stay in the 9 zones for long. He will just lead the Feng family to glory once again. He is just a mere human king. His power is insufficient to unify the 9 zones, Chu Zan said. Hua Ziying was shocked. This senior was so powerful. He was not even bothered with a human king. The waters of the 9 zones were too deep. Even divine realm experts could only swim in shallow waters. Feng Kong was not completely dead, which was probably an accident on Kingslayer's part. Chu Zan was thinking about whether or not he should save Feng Kong. After all, the great Daoyuan calamity was about to arrive, and the latter's identity as a human king was an advantageous thing. Feng Kong could lead the human race to fight for fate, and he could also use Feng Kong to accelerate the progress of his own plans. Of course, Chu Zan did not care much about whether Feng Kong lived or died. It was up to Shang Xing. Chapter 287 My son has the bearing of a king. Chu Zan looked at Shang Xing and asked, how do you want to deal with the Feng family? How did he want to deal with the Feng family? This was a little complicated. There was a grudge between them, as the Feng family had suppressed his mother. However, from what he knew, his mother actually occupied a favored position in the Feng family. Was it right or wrong to not give them the Dao fruit to save their patriarch? Shang Xing did not know. He only knew that because his mother had been suppressed, and his father had ignored his existence, he had been ridiculed and humiliated. Looking at the silent Shang Xing, Chu Zan said, it's fine as long as you follow your heart. You don't owe them anything. Whether it's right or wrong, what does that matter? You should save your mother first. If you feel that your mother owes the Feng family and you want to make up for it later, you can think about saving Feng Kong then. Shang Xing's heart skipped a beat, and he said, Master is right. I will do as my heart tells me. That question would be dealt with later. For now, saving his mother was his priority. The great Daoyuan calamity is coming. Cultivate diligently. It is both a calamity and an opportunity. All living beings in the 9 zones will not be able to avoid this calamity. If you want to fight for fate, you will naturally enter the calamity. Chu Zan paused for a moment before continuing, if you don't want to fight for fate, you can return to me. The calamity will not affect me. Shang Xing's heart trembled. His gaze was firm as he said, Master, I will definitely fight for fate. I will definitely not let you down. Take good advantage of the opportunity. Before Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror, he said, if you want to save Feng Kong, you can look for me. Save. Hua Ziying was still in a state of shock. The Great Daoyuan Calamity. What was that? She had actually discovered an incredible secret. Sister Hua, Shangxing waved his hand back and forth in front of her face. Hua Ziying raised her head and looked at Shangxing. She smiled bitterly and said, "Little monster, you really are capable. You have such a powerful master. Although master is powerful, I cannot rely on him to help me. I have to rely on myself." Shangxing said with a determined gaze. "I want to become an ultimate expert too. I believe that you will definitely be able to do it." Hua Ziying felt as if she was looking at the youth from back then. Shangxing now had that same stubborn and determined expression he had back then. She, Hua Ziying, had also risen from humble beginnings. She was also stubborn and unyielding, and had finally reached the divine realm. When she met Shangxing back then, she had seen her younger self in him. It was precisely because of this that she had taken extra care of Shangxing. She had never thought that this would lead to the greatest opportunity that she had ever experienced. The Feng family of the southern zone had always kept a very low profile, and did not meddle in worldly affairs. Before this, only the elders and higher-ups of the Feng family knew why the Feng family kept such a low profile, and why they were so reclusive. However, now two more knew. Only a wisp of the patriarch's divine soul remained. It was the most miserable outcome for a human king. The Feng family had two human kings. The first human king had emerged far too long ago, to the extent that even the Feng family did not know the name of this ancestor. The second human king revived the declining Feng family, but at his peak, he was killed. Even though he had a contingency plan, only a wisp of his divine soul remained. Ever since then, the Feng family had focused on one thing, which was saving their patriarch. As countless elders of the Feng family had gone to the desolate ancient zone to search for treasures, and many Feng family elders had fallen there while searching for treasures. Then, Feng Ruping, the daughter of the Feng family, came across a fortuitous opportunity. They thought that this was their chance to save the patriarch. Who would have thought that she actually hid the Dao fruit and refused to hand it over? The Feng family elders were extremely furious. In front of a dark cave in the family's forbidden area. "Your son has already grown up and is extremely talented. If you don't hand over the Dao fruit, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Feng Yongxian stood in front of the cave and shouted angrily. After a while, a woman's voice could be heard from inside the cave. "Third uncle, why are you so stubborn?" The woman's voice was full of anger. "For the patriarch, my father died while hunting for treasures. Grandfather also died in the same way. Many elders and ancestors of the Feng family also died like that. Is it worth it? How many more members of the Feng family must die?" Feng Yongxian gritted his teeth and said, "What do you know? You don't know who the patriarch is. If we revive him, do you know how powerful our Feng family will become? Without him, will our Feng family not be strong? If my father, grandfather, and uncles, which one of them was not a talented person?" The woman's voice was abnormally angry as she said, "So many talented people, yet none of them can compare to the patriarch." "Enough," Feng Yongxian roared, "you don't understand the importance of the patriarch at all." His eyes were red and his voice trembled as he said, "Are you willing to let your son suffer, or will you hand it over? Do you know how your son has been living all these years? Everyone calls him a little monster and he was constantly bullied." The cave was silent. Feng Yunxian continued, "Hua Ziying is already dying because she tried to save your son. I have already held back because he is your son and has the Feng family's bloodline. Don't force me to kill him. The Dao fruit is gone." Feng Ruping said angrily, "I have already eaten the Dao fruit. When I was pregnant, I ate the Dao fruit. Will you dare to kill my son?" "Feng Yongxian, my son has the bearing of a king. Can you do it?" Feng Yongxian roared and roared. The surrounding mountains rumbled and rays of light flashed, as the formation there blocked out the shockwaves of Feng Yongxian's venting. "You ate the Dao fruit?" "Yes, I ate it, and then gave birth to my son. My son has the bearing of a king." Feng Ruping smiled and said, "For the sake of the patriarch, how many elders and ancestors of my Feng family have died? A descendant with a king's bearing, can he not be compared to him?" "Feng Ruping, how could you do this?" Feng Yongxian roared angrily, "I'm going to refine your son into a pill." "Will that help? Even if you refine my son into a pill, can you save the patriarch?" "Ridiculous. Can you really ignore my son?" Feng Ruping smiled, feeling the pleasure of revenge. "You people, for the sake of the patriarch, how many people have you killed? My father is dead, my grandfather is dead, and my big brother is missing. They loved me the most, but in the end, they all died. Why didn't you all die? If it was you who died, I definitely wouldn't have swallowed the Dao fruit without permission. Feng Yuanxian's eyes were red, and his voice was hoarse. Wasn't I sad when they died too? What do you know? That's the Feng family's patriarch. The human king, Fengkong. His voice choked with sobs. Feng Ruping was silent. Human king Fengkong. Yes, my Feng family's human king, Fengkong, he. Feng Yuanxian clutched his head in pain. So what? I don't regret it. My son is stronger than him. My son has the bearing of a king. Feng Ruping smiled. Did Xiangbang bewitch you? Feng Yuanxian suddenly asked with a ferocious expression. I knew it. That little B***starred Xiangbang is not a good person. He must have bewitched you. I'm going to kill him. Chapter 288. The 30-year milestone is approaching. You can't kill him, Feng Ruping said. I obtained that opportunity with him. After so many years, I'm pretty sure that his plan has succeeded. After a pause, she said, for the Feng family's sake, you'd better not offend him. Xiangbang might break through the shackles of the divine realm. He is not a simple person. Feng Yuanxian's pupils constricted as he said, since Xiangbang is so extraordinary, why did he sit back and watch his son being bullied? Feng Ruping was silent for a long while before she said, Xiangbang values character. That's just how it is. He wants to temper his son's state of mind to be unyielding. He is a slightly abnormal person. Feng Yuanxian was momentarily stunned. Then, he said, I will not give up. I must save the patriarch. With bloodshot eyes, he left the forbidden area. Somewhere in the southern zone, in an underground cave. Xiangbang looked at the person on the jade bed and muttered, it's time. His body was vibrating with spiritual power. Mysterious patterns covered his entire body and locked him up like chains. His body began to dissolve, turning illusory as he walked towards the person on the jade bed. At the same time, the person on the jade bed opened his eyes. His lips quivered. I'm finally going to succeed. When I merge with him, I'll definitely be able to open the path to surpass the divine realm. The two Xiangbangs began to merge together. Their bodies merged, and their souls became one. The Myriad Wonders house began to become active. Out of the Myriad Wonders 13 flowers, 12 people traveled frequently around the southern zone. Communication talismans and Myriad Zone talismans were selling like hotcakes. Moreover, they contacted the various major powers of the southern zone and sold them the methods to refine communication talismans. Shangxing was in secluded cultivation, alongside Hua Ziying's main body. Shangxing was waiting for the arrival of the great Daoyuan calamity. He needed help. Dong! Another muffled sound rang out throughout the 9 zones. Chu Zan raised his head and looked into the distance. This was already the 8th time. The northern zone was about to be fully encompassed by the heavenly Dao laws, and the great Daoyuan calamity was about to descend. The spiritual energy in the 9 zones became chaotic. Even divine realm experts could sense a trace of an oppressive aura flooding the world. All the living beings in the 9 zones felt as if there was a huge rock weighing their hearts down. Some of the declining forces could not wait for the great Daoyuan calamity to descend. They wanted to fight for fate and rise up once again. This was especially true for forces in the Chaos Zone. The Great Evil Palace was disbanded, and the Evil Sun's whereabouts were unknown. The Evil Warding Palace founded by the Little Evil King had become a force in the Chaos Zone that was no weaker than the Great Evil Palace. Communication talismans had already spread throughout the 8 zones. In the desolate ancient zone, there were divine realm experts who had also started using the Myriad Zone's talismans, which would become the foothold of the expansion of the heavenly Dao laws here. Through the heavenly Dao talisman, Chu Zan could monitor the movements of all of the major forces in the 9 zones. Furthermore, the 30-year milestone was approaching. Chu Zan felt rather emotional. His time in the small courtyard had passed like the blink of an eye. The central region of the northern zone was finally about to come under the banner of the heavenly Dao laws, after which, the entire northern zone would be under the heavenly Dao laws. As long as the northern zone fell under the control of the heavenly Dao laws, Chu Zan would be able to stay safely in the courtyard. The great Daoyuan calamity would not affect him. Even if another Dao realm expert appeared, he would be able to rely on the power of the heavenly Dao laws to block them. This was Chu Zan's way of opening his own Dao path. Chu Zan was looking forward to the rewards for the 30-year milestone, as well as the rewards he would receive for bringing the entire northern zone under the heavenly Dao laws. Chu Zan cast his gaze towards a certain place in the southern region. There was a youth sitting cross-legged there. His gaze was resolute, and he gritted his teeth as he tried hard to break through. This was a youth with great willpower. Although his level of talent was ordinary, his tenacity and willpower far surpassed what an ordinary person possessed. Chuzan paid attention to him because this youth had actually experienced a momentary epiphany during one of his cultivation sessions. One had to know that this youth was only in the mortal realm. He was the first person in the northern zone to experience an epiphany at the mortal realm. The youth's name was Hai. He was a very ordinary young man, and the cultivation technique he cultivated was also mediocre. He lived in a remote corner of the southern region, in a small village in the Great Qin dynasty. At this moment, Hai was trying to break through to the profound realm. Chuzan did not interfere and just watched. Whether or not he could break through depended on Hai himself. His comprehension was extraordinary, so if he could break through to the profound realm, he might be able to gain insights into future cultivation methods from the heavenly Tao laws. Hai continued his breakthrough attempt. Chuzan watched for a while before looking away. Even if he did not interfere, Hai's breakthrough would not surprise him. As for how far this youth could go, that was up to him. However, since he was the first person to possess extraordinary perception after the birth of the heavenly Tao laws, his fate was naturally not weak. Chuzan shifted his focus to the central region. There were only a tiny bit of core laws of heaven and earth remaining. This was an extremely crucial and critical period, so Chuzan had to focus. After the heavenly Tao laws took control of the northern zone, they would expand into the eastern zone. Chuzan lacked a foothold in the western zone, so although the communication talismans were widespread there, the foundation for the expansion of the heavenly Tao talisman plan was lacking in comparison to the eastern zone. He needed the heavenly Tao laws to take control of at least one zone in the eastern zone before trying to expand into the western zone. Chuzan tapped the heavenly Tao talisman, and the power of fate of the central region, as well as the other four regions, began to condense as the heavenly Tao laws devoured the final bit of core laws of heaven and earth in the central region. This process would take a few days. Qin Ying once again returned to the northern zone and led Xin Yuanfeng and the others as they trained the Great Qin dynasty's armies in preparation for the Great Daoyuan calamity. The Black Moon Tower of the eastern zone had spread its wings far and wide. Like in the northern zone, it had become a powerful faction that everyone respected and trusted in terms of intelligence gathering. Heiyu also returned this time. She wanted to rearrange her plans, preparing to expand the Black Moon Tower's influence into the southern zone. Currently, she was in the process of contacting Shangxing to get the Myriad Wonders House to cooperate and merge with the Black Moon Tower. Chapter 289 The Arrival of the Blood Fiends. Chuzan did not pay too much attention to the actions of his disciples, but focused more on the progress of the heavenly Tao talisman plan. As long as the core plan was not messed up, Chuzan did not have to pay attention to the other minor details. Moreover, he believed in Heiyu's ability. Heiyu had been able to develop the Black Moon Tower into a major force in the northern zone. From this, it could be seen that her ability was extraordinary. Moreover, her background was equally as extraordinary as well as her breadth of knowledge. She was ambitious, and had the ability to back it up. In terms of determination, Heiyu did not lose out to anyone. She had suffered a lot since birth, and had been forced to stifle and control her emotions. Finally, the last bit of the core laws of heaven and earth of the central region of the northern zone were devoured by the heavenly Tao laws. The heavenly Tao laws have taken over the central region of the northern zone. You have been rewarded with a cultivation level advancement. Chuzan received the reward, and his cultivation level rose by 1 to the 7th level of the Tao realm. Chuzan was fairly satisfied at the speed at which his cultivation level was rising. Within the 30 years he had spent in this small courtyard, he had advanced from the mortal realm to the 7th level of the Tao realm. No other person could achieve something like this. Of course, this was due to the system. The heavenly Tao laws continued to expand and devour the laws of heaven and earth of the northern zone's 5 regions. The heavenly Tao laws now occupied the core of the northern zone's laws of heaven and earth. Incorporating the entire northern zone under the heavenly Tao laws would only be a matter of time, and everything would then be under Chuzan's control. Moreover, every cultivator would cultivate and comprehend the heavenly Tao laws. Western Zone, Northern Region. There was a famous desert here that was rumored to be an ancient battlefield where countless experts had fallen. There were no plants growing in this desert, and countless bones were buried under the ground. Those who were lucky would occasionally dig out some artifacts from underground. There were even some cultivation techniques and secret technique manuals. Some of them had been left there from the ancient era, while others were left behind by those who had died while exploring the desert. Occasionally, there would be itinerant cultivators who came to this desert in an attempt to look for opportunities. There were also people who brought their enemies here to be killed. The Western Zone was a bit special among the 5 zones of the human race. There were descendants of mixed blood here, who were descended from both humans and demons. They were not favored by the demon race, nor were they favored by the human race. Thus, they could only survive in the Western Zone. The Heavenly Saint sect was the largest sect where these mixed blood people gathered, and there were many experts among them. Whenever there was friction between the human race and the demon race, there would be human experts stationed in the Western Zone to check if there were any mixed blood cultivators who betrayed the human race. The demon race also did not allow these people to enter the demon zone in case they were spies of the human race. The mixed blood cultivators led by the Heavenly Saint sect could thus only survive in the Western Zone. If they left the Western Zone, they would be suspected as traitors by everyone and hunted down. In fact, no one knew how these mixed blood cultivators came to be in the first place. Was it a tragedy caused by the invasion of the demon race back then? Or was it a problem that arose when some of the beautiful women captured by the heavenly demon tribe escaped? No one knew, and no one could investigate its origins at this point. The martial style of the Western Zone was more valiant. The cultivators here all preferred to train their bodies. In terms of the toughness of their bodies, the Western Zone's cultivators were definitely a notch above the rest. Their fighting style was also more violent. They used cruder and larger weapons, for example, axes, hammers, clubs and so on. Rong Jiahao was an ordinary Emperor Realm cultivator. He had been obsessed with body tempering from the mortal realm to the Emperor realm. His bronze-colored muscles were full of explosive power. On this day, he arrived at the desert of the northern region of the Western Zone. He wanted to try his luck and see if he could find a powerful body tempering technique in the desert. The cultivators of the Western Zone had a unique characteristic. They liked to carry their weapons on their shoulders instead of keeping them in their storage bags. Thus, when the cultivators from the other zones saw someone carrying a weapon in that manner, they knew without asking that the other party was from the Western Zone. Rong Jiahao carried his mace and walked into the desert resolutely. He wanted to go to the depths of the desert where few people had reached to try his luck. 3 days later, Rong Jiahao looked at the rippling space in front of him and the faint blood-colored mist that was gushing out. He was extremely excited. His luck was indeed unparalleled. He had encountered an ancient ruin that was opening. He was waiting. A day later, a spatial crack that looked like a door appeared. It was filled with blood-colored mist. Rong Jiahao hefted his mace onto his shoulder and walked in. He had just entered when he encountered a strange person. This person had a ferocious face with exposed fangs. His eyes and hair were red, as was his skin. A bloody aura surrounded him, and there was a faint smell of blood coming from his body. Rong Jiahao frowned. What was this? What race was this? Was there such a race in the 9 zones? The faint smell of blood was a little unpleasant, causing him to frown. However, Rong Jiahao did not panic. The human race was the dominant race in the 9 zones. Moreover, the other party's strength was inferior to his. Did this person actually want to compete with him for the opportunities in this ruin? When the blood-colored savage freak saw Rong Jiahao, his eyes flashed with a brutal light. He let out a roar from his throat, followed by a few strange and unintelligible syllables. Rong Jiahao did not understand what the other party was saying. Hey, what kind of language are you speaking? Do you speak the human language? If you don't speak the human language, then get lost. The freak was silent for a moment, then he uttered another syllable from his throat. This time, it was accompanied by a fluctuation of his divine soul's will. Are you a human? You dare to intrude into my race's territory? PFF, what do you mean by your race's territory? This is the Western Zone, the territory of my human race. Rong Jiahao spat. Roar, I'm going to tear you apart. The strange freak roared angrily. The blood-colored spiritual power in his body surged, and he rushed over. Rong Jiahao picked up the mace and swung it. A battle instantly broke out. As the battle continued, Rong Jiahao was secretly shocked. This guy was actually very powerful. That blood-colored spiritual power actually had a strong corrosive power too. Die. Not long after the battle commenced, Rong Jiahao smashed the head of the other party with his mace. After smashing the strange person to death, Rong Jiahao did not stop and continued to move forward. Not long after, Rong Jiahao became depressed. He did not find any treasures, but instead kept running into these strange people. They were all killed by him. There's something wrong with this place. This place was filled with blood-colored spiritual energy. It was like a place where countless people died. Don't run, I'm going to tear you apart. A furious roar came from behind. Rong Jiahao looked back and was shocked. Chapter 290, Ancient Chaos Mountain. The freak that was running madly behind him was actually the first freak that he had killed earlier. The other party's crimson eyes were burning with raging flames of fury. His mouth was open, revealing his fangs. Rong Jiahao was shocked beyond belief. How could this be? The other party had clearly been smashed to death by him. How could he be still alive? Gritting his teeth, he charged forward. Another battle ensued. Finally, he crushed the other party to death again. In order to ensure that there was no chance of revival, Rong Jiahao destroyed the other party's body. When he destroyed the body, Rong Jiahao was shocked to discover that the strange person's soul did not seem to exist. To be more accurate, it was not that it did not exist, but rather that it had fused with the body. Their souls could not leave their bodies. This meant that soul-type secret techniques were useless against these freaks. They had to destroy their bodies. Furthermore, their bodies were actually very powerful. Is he dead? If he isn't dead, then I'll escape immediately. Rong Jiahao spat at the broken corpse. Along the way, there were constant roars. The freaks he had killed had all been resurrected. Rong Jiahao's entire body turned cold, and a sense of horror welled up in his heart. He realized that things were not looking good. If there were experts among this bizarre race, it would be a disaster if they appeared. After yet another great battle, Rong Jiahao had finally killed all of the freaks. He was also exhausted from the exertion of his physical body. However, when he turned his head around, the first freaks that he had killed and destroyed were currently starting to reform. Their flesh and blood was condensing into a new body. However, the time required was even longer than the first time. Rong Jiahao rushed forward and destroyed the other party before they could fully resurrect. This time, he even burned his physical body. The other monsters were also treated in the same manner. They shouldn't be able to resurrect this time, right? Rong Jiahao muttered to himself. If they could resurrect even after this, it would be terrifying. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Half a month later, the strange freak had not resurrected. Rong Jiahao heaved a sigh of relief, but he did not dare to continue exploring. He was afraid that he would encounter this race's experts. He turned around and returned the way he came. He wanted to spread the news. Behind him, the blood-red spiritual energy was condensing into a human figure. The blood fiend race had appeared. Chu Zan received the news from the communication talisman in the western zone. This also meant that the great Daoyuan calamity was about to arrive. The news about the blood fiend race was currently only spread among a small group of people within a small area in the western zone. Someone had organized an expedition to the desert in order to investigate. Chu Zan used the heavenly Dao laws to spy on the entire 9 zones. He discovered that the spiritual energy in the 9 zones had become chaotic, and the laws of heaven and earth had already changed slightly. The Dao of fate was hidden within the chaotic spiritual energy. Those who fought for fate could take advantage of this situation. Chu Zan possessed the fate Dao principle, so he was more sensitive to fate than anyone else, and could pry into its workings. The fate of the 9 zones had already quietly changed. The signs of a great calamity had already appeared. The first place to face the calamity would be the western zone. Chu Zan thought for a moment and informed Heiyu of the news that the blood fiend race had appeared in the western zone. As for how she would handle this news, Chu Zan did not care. He was not going to face the calamity. His disciples would enter the calamity and fight for fate to bring him rewards. How to face the calamity was a matter for his disciples to consider. Chu Zan, their master, would not pave the way for them. The heavenly Dao laws were still expanding rapidly, covering the entire northern zone, though it would still take time for the entire northern zone to be encompassed. However, the core of the northern zone, the 5 regions, had already fallen under the control of the heavenly Dao laws, so there would be no other major obstacles. Chu Zan just had to wait. The 30-year milestone was also about to arrive, which excited Chu Zan. He was already at the 7th level of the Dao realm, but at the same time still very far away from the Daoyuan realm. However, as long as he continued to stay in the courtyard, Chu Zan believed that he would be able to reach that objective within his desired time frame. In order for him to do so, he had to avoid the great Daoyuan calamity. In that sense, he was glad that he had come up with the heavenly Dao talisman plan back then. Otherwise, he would be affected by the great Daoyuan calamity. Thanks to the system's rewards for each expansion of the heavenly Tao laws, he could raise his cultivation level quickly. As such, the transformation and upgrade of the origin Tao crystal was no longer as urgent. Moreover, his cultivation speed while journeying through the great Tao might not be as fast as the speed at which he advanced through the system's rewards for the expansion of the heavenly Tao laws. In the great Tao, one also needed to gain enlightenment. Moreover, although the great Tao was omnipresent, Chuzan did not dare to rashly move. He did not want to accidentally leave the small courtyard, which would result in the cumulative record being erased. Finally, the 30-year milestone period arrived. You've been in secluded cultivation for 30 years. Please keep up the good work and set a new record. You have been rewarded with the ancient Chaos Mountain. That was it. Chuzan was stunned. A mountain. What was so special about this mountain? He checked the system's reward. Ancient Chaos Mountain. A mountain in the midst of chaos. It has experienced the vicissitudes of time and the calamities of the primal chaos. It has always stood tall, and it contains the dense aura of chaos. It has the ability to stabilize one's Tao path, stabilize the laws of heaven and earth, and nourish the items from the primal chaos. It can emit chaotic energy. After reading the introduction, Chuzan was pleasantly surprised. It was a supreme treasure. As expected of the reward for the 30-year milestone. The ancient Chaos Mountain was a black, mottled, and aged mountain that had experienced the erosion of time. If it was placed in the 9 zones, it would be considered a small mountain. However, such a mountain was an incredible existence in the primal chaos. The mountain was not big, but it was extremely heavy. Chuzan was certain that, even if he used all of his strength, he would not be able to lift this mountain. This spoke volumes. He was a 7th-level Tao realm cultivator, yet he was unable to move a 300-meter-tall mountain. However, since it was a reward from the system, Chuzan naturally could move it thanks to the system. Chuzan could feel the chaotic energy emitted by the ancient Chaos Mountain. It was wisps and wisps of it. To Tao realm warriors, and even Taoyuan realm experts, it was a supreme treasure. Finally, he had a treasure that could make Taoyuan realm experts envious. Only then would it be worthy of his status as a super big shot. Chuzan placed the ancient Chaos Mountain into the pocket dimension. Boom! Once the ancient Chaos Mountain entered the pocket dimension, it only took an instant for the miniature world inside the pocket dimension to become stable. Furthermore, it continued to expand amidst the chaotic energy. A certain transformation was occurring, including among the life forms of the small world. All of them were transforming and improving. The animals and plants around the ancient Chaos Mountain were contaminated by the chaotic energy and the aura of the ancient Chaos Mountain. In time, they would transform into beings of chaos. Chapter 291, Do Fellow Taoists Have Chaos Stones? Chuzan examined the changes in the pocket dimension as it continued to expand. He felt that the level of the pocket dimension would probably surpass that of the 9 zones, and that its upper limit was higher than the 9 zones. Of course, it was only in the early stages, so it naturally could not compare to the 9 zones. However, thanks to the ancient Chaos Mountain, the space around the pocket dimension became more stable than the space around the 9 zones. The heavenly treasures in the pocket dimension would also increase in quality. At the same time, Chuzan was curious. Was there an endless chaos beyond the Great Tao? Did some Taoyuan realm experts explore the endless chaos instead of staying in the 9 zones? Compared to some old monsters, Chuzan was still a newbie. Just the 9 zones and the Great Tao likely contained many more secrets that he had yet to discover, much less whatever was beyond the Great Tao. Was there a boundary to the Great Tao? This was another unknown. Was the primal chaos also within the Great Tao? In fact, Chuzan was even thinking about another question. Did the primal chaos give birth to the Great Tao, or did the Great Tao give birth to the primal chaos? Shaking his head, Chuzan did not continue down this line of thinking. This question was too profound, and it was not something that he could explore now. He waved his hand, absorbing a wisp of chaotic energy from the ancient Chaos Mountain. This wisp of chaotic energy was naturally not as large as the lumps that the system had rewarded him with previously. However, if he absorbed a bit of it each day, it would gradually accumulate. His indestructible chaos body could absorb the chaotic energy. The chaotic energy of the ancient Chaos Mountain was not endless. When the chaotic energy disappeared, the ancient Chaos Mountain would naturally disappear alongside it. However, Chuzan felt that since the ancient Chaos Mountain had existed for such a long time, it would not disappear so easily. The ancient Chaos Mountain was a mountain peak with a mottled body. One could see small stones scattered all over the mountain. These small chaos stones were precious treasures to Dao realm warriors and Daoyuan realm experts. They could stabilize one's Dao path. This also meant that if Daoyuan realm experts placed these stones on their Dao paths would become extremely stable. Moreover, the speed at which they opened their Dao paths would not cause their Dao paths to become unstable. Chu Zan took out a fist-sized stone. The small black stone exuded a special chaotic aura, which did not dissipate. Boom! Chu Zan used the destruction Dao principle to strike the stone in his hand. However, this small stone was not damaged at all. Boom! All of his Dao principles fused together to form a miniature great Dao that struck the stone again. In the end, there was still no mark left behind. The strength of the chaos stones was beyond imagination. He was a 7th level Dao realm expert, and his Dao principles had fused to the point where they could condense into a miniature version of the great Dao. His power far surpassed an ordinary 7th level Dao realm cultivator. Even so, he had been unable to leave a mark on the chaos stone. It was no wonder that it could stabilize Dao paths and stabilize the laws of heaven and earth. Chu Zan took out the Earth Creation Scripture and used one of its pages to cut the chaos stone. The Earth Creation Scripture could open up a territory within the Great Dao, so its power naturally could not be underestimated. A crack appeared on the Chaos Stone, but it was not a deep one. Chu Zan continued to use the Earth Creation Scripture to cut it a few times, before finally managing to cut open the small stone. Using the Earth Creation Scripture consumed a lot of Chu Zan's spiritual power. Putting away the Earth Creation Scripture, Chu Zan took out the Heaven-Splitting Brush this time. The Heaven-Splitting Brush was also a supreme treasure. It could split open the heavens in the primal chaos. From this, one could see just how powerful it was. Cutting open the chaos stone should not be a problem. Slash. Using the Heaven-Splitting Brush continuously consumed a lot of Chu Zan's spiritual power. Still, finally, he cut this small stone into more than 10 pieces. He placed the small pieces of the chaos stone on the table and absorbed Dao aura to recover his spiritual power. A small piece of chaos stone was also a supreme treasure. Chu Zan glanced at the Daoyuan realm experts in the Great Dao Communication Group and asked, "Fellow Daoists, who has chaos stones?" Chaos stones? Hong Yuanchu shook his head and said, "I have never obtained one before." Rumor has it that chaos stones are supreme treasures. Mo Tu and the others also said that they had only heard of it, but had never obtained one before. Huang Long said, "Is it a black rock? It's very special and can stabilize one's Dao path." Chu Zan was stunned. Huang Long had seen it before. Or, did he have a chaos stone? That was impossible. He could not leave the Great Dao, so how could he obtain a chaos stone? Could it be that there were chaos stones in the Great Dao? Have you seen one before, fellow Daoist Huang Long? Yes, I don't remember when though. I once saw a person on the Great Dao. He was holding a small stone in his hand, which allowed him to walk on the Great Dao stably. Huang Long then continued, "After hearing your description, that was probably a chaos stone." Chaos stones, are they really that rare? Chu Zan asked with a puzzled expression. Hong Yuanchu and the others were all dumbfounded. Judging from his tone, could this big shot easily obtain chaos stones? Daoist brother Chu has a chaos stone? Huang Long asked curiously. Chu Zan shook his head and said, "I don't have a single chaos stone. Instead, I have one ancient chaos mountain." The group was silent. What did he mean by only one ancient chaos mountain? A mountain. Could a mountain be compared to a stone? There was no doubt that Daoist brother Chu was a super big shot. What does the ancient chaos mountain look like? Huang Long continued to ask curiously. It's just a slightly bigger chaos stone. There's nothing strange about it, Chu Zan said very casually. Then, he changed the topic and stopped discussing the chaos stone. Instead, he asked, "Fellow Daoists, does the Great Dao have an end? Does it have a boundary? Does the Great Dao have an end?" Hong Yuanchu pondered. The Great Dao is shapeless and omnipresent. It naturally has no end, Mo Tu chimed in. This was already considered a Dao discussion. The Dao realm cultivators in the group all held their breaths as they watched the big shots discuss the Dao. Hong Yuanchu and the others were all very curious as to why Chu Zan would ask this. We Daoyuan realm cultivators should have another group to discuss the Great Dao. We shouldn't allow our discussion to affect the other little friends' Dao hearts. Chu Zan saw that the time was ripe, so he announced his intentions. What Daoist brother Chu said is extremely true. Hong Yuanchu and the others all agreed one after another. The other Dao realm cultivators were all speechless. This topic had piqued their interest, but in the end, they ran away to form another group. Mo2 did not forget to mock Xu Yang. Trashy Xu Yang, continue to hang out with the younger generation. I'm going to the other group. Xu Yang was furious, but at the same time, he was extremely sullen. Before Mo2 joined the group, he could still maintain the demeanor of a senior with the younger generation. However, after Mo2 joined, he would mock him from time to time. It made him feel ashamed to face the younger generation. This really hurt his self-esteem. Chu Zan was also speechless. Did Mo2 have a grudge against Xu Yang? Why did he choose this moment to troll him? Ignoring their argument, Chu Zan created the group for Daoyuan Realm cultivators and summoned THM there. Of course, the Daoyuan Realm experts were still members of the original Great Dao Communication Group. Chapter 292, Dumbfounded Daoyuan Realm Experts. After entering the Daoyuan Realm Experts group, they continued with the previous topic. The Daoyuan Realm Experts, such as Hong Yuanchu, Mo2, and the Soaring Flood Dragon King, all believed that the Great Dao was endless. I like to sleep, and I don't play around much on the Great Dao, so I don't know whether or not it has an end, Gui Ran said foolishly. He was a turtle, so it was normal for him to like to sleep. Huang Long said, I play around a lot, but I have never seen the end of the Great Dao. Even the creatures of the Great Dao did not know whether the Great Dao had an end or not. Was it really endless? The new creature of the Great Dao, the 10-winged hell-devouring rock, Yi Yujun, spoke up at this moment. I once saw a part of the Great Dao in the distance. It was chaotic and hazy. I couldn't go over. I don't know if it can be considered the end of the Great Dao. As soon as he said this, the group fell silent. After a long while, Ruoxian said in shock, could it be that the Great Dao really has an end and a boundary? Ruoxian, why are you shouting? I'm not pressing on you. The moment Mo2 opened his mouth, Ruoxian felt like beating him up. Then, Mo2 continued, perhaps, that chaotic place is also a part of the Great Dao. Chu Zan fell into deep thought. Was the primal chaos outside of the Great Dao? Did the Great Dao give birth to chaos, or was it the chaos that gave birth to the Great Dao? Was it the chicken that gave birth to the egg, or the egg that gave birth to the chicken? Was the chaos before the Great Dao, or was the Great Dao before the chaos? Chu Zan decided to leave the question to the Daoyuan Realm experts to ponder. It was to prevent them from being bored to death. Thus, Chu Zan said, fellow Taoists, let me ask you another question. Where is the chaos? Hong Yuanchu and the others were dumbfounded once again. Where was the chaos? They had only heard about it, but they did not know. At this moment, they felt that they were just newbies who did not know anything about this matter. They could not answer a single question. Seeing that no one was answering, Chu Zan asked again, is the Great Dao in the chaos? Did the Great Dao give birth to chaos, or did chaos give birth to the Great Dao? They were still dumbfounded. What a profound question. They did not know how to answer it at all. In fact, they did not understand it at all. As expected, they were still too inexperienced compared to super big shots like Taoist brother Chu. Chu Zan continued, fellow Taoists, you can think about it carefully. This is a great secret. Once you have comprehended it, it won't be difficult for you to make further progress. They should try their best to think about it. He did not want them to be so bored that their minds would wander toward the Great Daoyuan Calamity, or the 9 zones. Hong Yuanchu and the others were dumbfounded and were at a loss for a long time. When they finally came back to their senses, they respectfully said, thank you, Taoist brother Chu, for preaching the Tao for us. Although they were clueless, it was undoubtedly very profound and worthy of their exploration. Once they comprehended even the tiniest bit, they would probably be able to advance further in their cultivation. Fellow Taoists, think carefully on this matter. Next time, I'll discuss the Tao with fellow Taoists, Chu Zan nodded and said. The Daoyuan group fell silent. These Daoyuan group members, including the creatures of the Great Dao, were all pondering this question. Apart from the doubts about the Great Calamity, Chu Zan had now thrown another difficult problem at these Daoyuan group members to prevent them from paying attention to the 9 zones. After all, they might take advantage of the Great Daoyuan Calamity to extend their tentacles into the 9 zones. This was especially so for the Daoyuan realm experts of the demon race, such as Mo2. If they discovered that something was wrong with the demon zone, they would definitely interfere. Although they would not personally enter the 9 zones, they would definitely have their own means of intervening in the matters of the 9 zones. Hong Yuanchu and the others had been successfully sidetracked by Chu Zan. They were all thinking about the question of the great Tao and chaos. They felt that Chuzan would not have raised such a question for no reason. It might even have something to do with that mysterious great calamity. Perhaps the secret to transcending the great calamity was hidden within that question. After a few days of silence, the Daoyuan group became active. Hong Yuanchu and the others were communicating in the group, sharing their own experiences and corroborating with each other, wanting to gain some insights. This was also in case Chuzan would come out and correct them if there was a mistake in their comprehension. Then, they could naturally ask for advice. They were all old foxes. Chuzan ignored them and waited for the northern zone to be fully devoured by the heavenly Tao laws. He wondered what rewards he would gain when this happened. Once this was complete, it would be time for it to expand into the eastern zone. Chuzan believed that the moment the great Daoyuan calamity truly began, the laws of heaven and earth would definitely be in chaos, alongside the spiritual energy of the 9 zones. This would be the best opportunity for the heavenly Tao laws to expand. He took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Qianming first. The central zone was very crucial. Qianming's strength had increased rapidly. Apart from his talent, this was also related to the imminent great Daoyuan calamity. The restrictions on cultivation were removed to a certain extent, making it easier for him to cultivate. Qianming, who was already at the first level of the Supreme Realm, was now an elder of a large sect in the Qian region thanks to the help of the communication talisman refining method. With a sect to rely on, he was living in seclusion and quickly increasing his cultivation to prepare for the great Daoyuan calamity. Qianming was very low-key. Communication talismans were already spread all over the Qian region, and was even starting to spread to other regions. Sales were booming, and the communication talismans were often out of stock. There were even many large factions that purchased the method to refine the communication talismans. This sect had earned a lot of money because of Qianming. After Qianming, Chuzan turned his attention to Hu Tianya. This tiger's transformation was getting faster and faster. He was once again hailed as the young master of the heavenly tiger tribe. Because his transformation was awakening the divine beast bloodline, he naturally had the power to suppress the other monsters. After fighting for the fate of the monster zone, Hu Tianya's cultivation soared. He was also preparing for the great Daoyuan calamity. Xiaoliang and Dingyu were still challenging mystic realms or entering other hidden small clans, places. They had a lot of opportunities and were not far from breaking through to the heaven realm. Wang Luo was teaching people how to refine pills. He had also taught some people how to refine formation pills. He continued to target the Wang family and cause trouble for them. Because of formation pills and restriction pills, he created a new school of alchemy. Some people called Wang Luo a pill ancestor. Once the name of pill ancestor Wang Luo received widespread recognition, then Wang Luo would undoubtedly receive great fortune. It was very likely that in the future, he would become one of the legends of the path of alchemy. Chu Pingfan developed in the eastern region, and Yuer's ghost army also developed well. The Ji family admitted defeat. Shang Xing was in seclusion, refining artifacts, and researching new methods of refining secret treasures. The disciples were all methodically preparing for the great Daoyuan calamity. Each of them had their own ways to deal with the calamity and rise up. Chuzan, their master, did not have to worry about them. He was very pleased by this. Chapter 293 Confidence of the Heavenly Demon Tribe. Chuzan looked forward to his disciples' performance during the great Daoyuan calamity. They were all children of fate and were born to face the calamity. They would definitely perform well. Of course, it did not mean that those who were not children of fate could not rise up. After all, there were always some variables and accidents that occurred that allowed others to replace the children of fate. Demon Zone. The Buddhist clan had already been established. After occupying a region, Demon Buddha did not expand further. Instead, he consolidated his territory. Moreover, he had to accumulate his strength and build up the clan's foundation. The demon race was one of the 3 overlord races after all. Even if some middle and low-level demons converted to Buddhism, it would still not shake the foundation of the demon race. The foundation of the demons was actually controlled by the heavenly demon tribe. If the heavenly demon tribe was not defeated, the demon race would not be defeated. Moreover, the heavenly demon tribe's strength was not just for show. It was undoubtedly wishful thinking to defeat the heavenly demon tribe by relying on Buddha Nanwu alone. The heavenly demon tribe had their own reasons for not taking any further action, so they held back for the time being. If the Buddha race advanced further, they would definitely provoke the heavenly demon tribe into action. Even with the help of Buddha Nanwu, and a supreme treasure like the world-cleansing glazed pagoda, the Buddhist clan might not be able to put up a resistance. Therefore, he had to take things slowly. As a former member of the heavenly demon tribe, Demon Buddha naturally understood them very well. He also knew that the heavenly demon tribe was not united. He would fool the elites of the heavenly demon tribe into cultivating and converting to Buddhism. The appearance of the communication talisman allowed him to spread Buddhist Dharma without having to meet them in person. Buddhism was very attractive to demons. Some unambitious geniuses, or those who had been bullied by stronger geniuses, would definitely be swayed by Demon Buddha. Since cultivating demonic techniques was insufficient to surpass their opponents, then why not switch to Buddhism? The only thing that made them hesitate was that after cultivating Buddhist Dharma, they would become Buddhists and not demons. This made it unacceptable to some people who had a strong sense of belonging to the demon race. Other than these heavens blessed, Demon Buddha had also bewitched some of the heavenly demon tribe's powerhouses. For example, those who had been unable to break through their bottlenecks for a long time. Or those who had suffered injustice or had experienced grievances. As well as some experts who were nearing the end of their lifespans and could not break through. Converting to Buddhism was their only way out. Demon Buddha even specially taught them how to restrain themselves so that they would not be exposed when they cultivated Buddhism. That way, the elites who had secretly converted to Buddhism could continue to hide. Chuzan sighed. Demon Buddha looked kind and gentle. He was dressed in a white monk robe and was untainted by dust. He looked like a bodhisattva. However, in reality, he was quite sinister and scheming. Chuzan decided to find some time for his disciples to meet and get to know each other. Especially Hu Tianya, Demon Buddha, and Qian Ming, who had never met their fellow disciples before. It was rumored that a mysterious ancient ruin had appeared in the desert of the Western Zone's northern region. Moreover, there was a strange race inside. The number of people who came to the desert to explore the ancient ruin increased after news of that strange race being killed and revived. However, the rumored ancient ruin seemed to have disappeared. There was no trace of the strange blood-colored freaks. Many people thought that this was a rumor. In the desert, the figures of cultivators could occasionally be seen, and there were constant battles. Many experts from the major forces, or which had a long history, knew that the 9 zones were undergoing some kind of great change. The sound that echoed between heaven and earth was a warning sign. On the other hand, even if the itinerant cultivators knew about it, they would not pay too much attention to it. They were still worried about cultivation techniques, cultivation resources, and even frustrated about their conflicts with the disciples of the major factions. Many large factions were trying to preserve their inheritance by constructing mystic realms and the like to pass down their legacy. Some ancient factions were preparing for the great Daoyuan calamity. As time passed, a special atmosphere pervaded the entire 9 zones. The originally active forces began to restrain themselves. The itinerant cultivators realized that something big was about to happen. Originally, itinerant cultivators who had offended some large factions would be hunted down by their experts, but now, everything seemed eerily calm. Everyone now knew that something big was about to happen. The first thing they thought of was the invasion of the demon race, and that the human race was making preparations to deal with the demons or monsters. Countless cultivators began to prepare themselves to invade the demon zone. Demon zone. The elders of the heavenly demon tribe all wore grave expressions. Many elders felt uneasy and that something big was going to happen to the demon race. On race. There was the internal threat from the Buddhists, as well as the calamity that was about to befall the 9 zones. Under such circumstances, ignoring whether they could take advantage of the situation, it would already be considered a victory if they managed to protect the demon zone. It's not time yet. Let's put the matter of the Buddhist clan aside for now, the heavenly demon tribe Grand Elder said. The great calamity is about to arrive. The opportunity of the demons has arrived. Whether or not we can return to the peak of our demon race depends on this calamity. The Grand Elder said in a low voice, the Buddhist clan is not a threat at the moment. What we have to do first is to fight for fate in the great calamity. But the Buddhist clan is still a hidden danger, an elder said worriedly. Buddhist clan, they were once from the demon race. Did they think that they could escape the demon race just because they switched to cultivating some Buddhist techniques? The Grand Elder sneered and said, do you think the foundation of our demon race is so weak? Grand Elder is right, the other elders agreed. Ever since the demon race lost their king, the Grand Elder had become the highest authority in the demon race. He had grasped many secrets of the demon race. It was even rumored that the Grand Elder could use a secret technique to contact the missing Demon King and receive guidance from them. As Ruma, for example, this calamity was rumored to be a warning from the Demon King. As for the Buddhist clan, so what if they were strong? When the Great Daoyuan calamity began, the Dao realm experts of the demon race would return and destroy the Buddhist clan with a wave of their hands. As for whether or not the Buddhist clan's strength would soar during this period of time, to the point where even Dao realm experts of the demon race would not be able to phase them, this thought never crossed the Grand Elder's mind. How could the Dao realm be so easy to achieve? The powerful demon race only had a few Dao realm cultivators. This was the accumulation of the demon race's long heritage and foundation. How long had it even been since the Buddhist clan appeared? No matter how powerful and unfathomable Buddhist Dharma was, it was impossible to break through the shackles of the divine realm and reach the Dao realm within a short period of time. Moreover, there were strong and weak Dao realm experts. The heavenly demon tribe's elder meeting ended. When Demon Buddha caught wind of the meeting, he already knew what the heavenly demon tribe was waiting for. He was also waiting. He was not far from the heaven realm. Furthermore, he knew that this great Daoyuan calamity was very terrifying. It was not impossible for him to reach the Dao realm during this period of time. Moreover, he had the support of his master. Chapter 294 The Extraordinary G. Dexin. Central Zone, Central Region. The desolate ancient zone was extremely special among the 9 zones. Other than the desolate ancient zone, the central zone was the most prosperous zone. It was also the center of the 8 zones, and the core of the human race. There were countless experts here. The central region was the most powerful region in the central zone. It had a long history and many human kings had originated here. There were many ancient factions in the central region. There were also ancient factions that had secluded themselves. There was more than one human king family. Here, they possessed their own territory and mystic realm in the central region. This was the special treatment that human kings received for making great contributions to the human race. The Ji family was an ancient family with a long history, and also an ancient human king's family. It was rumored that the reason the human race was able to occupy the central region was due to the ancient human king of the Ji family. The Ji family did not interfere with the situation in the central region or the power struggles between the forces in the central region. However, no one could ignore the existence of the Ji family, and no one dared to underestimate the Ji family's influence. When the Ji family made their move, the entire central region would tremble. There were very few ancient factions that could compare to the Ji family in the entire central region, or even in the entire human race, and even the entire 9 zones. As an ancient human king's family with a long history, they naturally were aware of many of the secrets of the 9 zones. When the first sound rang out, all of the core members of the Ji family knew that the great Daoyuan calamity was coming. From the records and inheritances of the Ji family, they knew what the great Daoyuan calamity represented. It was both a great calamity and an opportunity. Humans fought for fate in the great Daoyuan calamity and became the overlords of the 9 zones. The current patriarch of the Ji family, Ji Tianbei, was rumored to be the most talented junior of the Ji family in the last million years. He was also the most powerful patriarch. Many clan elders supported him. His own strength was also very powerful. Ji Tianbei was sitting in front of his desk, looking at a myriad zones talisman. There was also a booklet. Black Moon Tower. Ji Tianbei mumbled as if he thought of something. Then, he shook his head and smiled. It did not matter if it was or not. There was a knock on the door. Come in. A handsome young man walked in. Father, the young man said respectfully. Ji Tianbei looked at his son and felt joy from the bottom of his heart. Among the many children, he valued this eldest son the most. Many elders in the family also valued him very much. He was now the young master of the Ji family, and the undisputed next leader of the Ji family. He was known as the most monstrous descendant of the Ji family after the 3 talented ancestors. Ji Dexin, he had a handsome appearance and a divine aura about him. He was heroic and extraordinary. He broke through to the Emperor realm at the age of 25. His strength had far surpassed his peers. He had once defeated a 5th-level Supreme Realm Genius of an ancient faction when he was a 9th-level Emperor Realm Cultivator. Now, Ji Dexin had already broken through to Heaven Realm. And he was not even 150 years old. He defied the standards of cultivation. He had not entered a time mystic realm, nor had he obtained any special opportunities. It was precisely because of this that Ji Dexin appeared to be an outlier. With the arrival of the great Daoyuan calamity, the Ji family elders all believed that Ji Dexin was born to face this calamity and obtain great fate from it. He would definitely lead the Ji family back to the glory days of their ancestors. The great Daoyuan calamity is coming. What are your thoughts? Ji Tianbei asked. Ji Shenxin said in a low voice, Father, don't worry. I will definitely fight for the Ji family and the human race's fate. I will let the world know that my human king's Ji family is the cornerstone of the human race. Good. Ji Tianbei was gratified. I believe that you will definitely be able to obtain great fate. Ji Dexin hesitated for a moment and said, Father, the Tianyu Tower is looking for her. Ji Tianbei was silent for a moment. After a long while, he said, What are your thoughts on this matter? Ji Dexin responded seriously, Father, regardless of whether it was right or wrong in the past, how can we allow others to interfere in RG family's matters? Since she's part of RG family's bloodline, the Tianyu Tower has overstepped their boundaries. Ji Tianbei looked up at Ji Dexin. At this moment, Ji Dexin was exuding a domineering aura. Father, it doesn't matter if you like her or hate her. The rules of the Tianyu Tower shouldn't concern the members of the Ji family. Since you are a member of the Ji family, you are not bound by the rules of the Tianyu Tower. Ji Dexin's expression was unquestionable. Ji Tianbei asked in a deep voice, What do you intend to do? Cut off the Tianyu Tower's hand. It's time to tell some people that our Ji family is still the overlord of the central region. Ji Dexin said firmly, Since the great Daoyuan calamity has arrived, it's time for our Ji family to take action. We should also establish the rules. The human race should not fight among themselves. Ha ha, Ji Tianbei laughed out loud. He stood up and patted Ji Dexin's shoulder. Good, very good, my son has the bearing of a king. Go do it then. The central region, which had been peaceful for a long time, was suddenly stirred. The young master of the Ji family, Ji Dexin, suddenly appeared. He attacked and injured the new saintess of the Tianyu Tower with 3 punches and killed the elder of the Tianyu Tower with 1 punch. He fought against 3 ancient factions, successors, and defeated them. He also visited the various factions in the central region and gathered them under the orders of the human king's Ji family to discuss the future of the human race. At this moment, the other descendants of the human king's families also began to take action. Eastern Zone. Heiyu's expression was calm without any fluctuations of emotions. However, her eyes were filled with coldness. She was the executor of the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan and cultivated the Heavenly Dao scripture. Naturally, she had a grasp of the news and situation in the 9 zones. The moment the communication talisman entered the central region, she had been paying attention. Ji Dexin had entered the fray. This meant that the Ji family was preparing for the great Daoyuan calamity. The ancient human king families knew secrets that ordinary people did not. Heiyu could not help but think of the handsome young man who seemed to be born with a divine aura. His extraordinary aura seemed to be innate. His talent was monstrous, and he was incomparably powerful. He was the young master of the Ji family. In terms of status, he was also her big brother. Heiyu had never seen anyone more domineering than him. Grandpa Zhang appeared beside Heiyu and said in a deep voice, Yuei, the Tianyu Tower seems to be looking for you. Grandpa, don't worry, the Tianyu Tower won't look for me for a while. Veer, Heiyu chuckled and said, Ji Dexin, you're still as domineering as ever. Grandpa Zhang was shocked. Ji Dexin was the most monstrous person he had ever seen. Thinking back, when he left the central region with Heiyu, he had been stopped by the Tianyu Tower. It was that extraordinary young man who appeared domineeringly and intimidated the Tianyu Tower into allowing him to leave the central region peacefully. After a long silence, Grandpa Zhang asked, Yuei, do you have a grudge against Ji Dexin? If possible, he did not want Heiyu and Ji Dexin to fight. Even if Heiyu had Chu Zan backing her, he still did not want Heiyu to become enemies with that monster. Chapter 295 Breaking Through Consecutively. Heiyu shook her head gently and said, I don't have a grudge against him, but I don't have a good impression of the Ji family, nor do I have a sense of belonging to them. She paused for a moment and continued, however, with his overbearing attitude, I'm afraid that there will inevitably be conflicts between us. She patted Grandpa Zhang's hand and said, Grandfather, don't worry. I, Heiyu, will not lose to him. So what if he was from the human king's Ji family? So what if he was the successor of the family? She, Heiyu, was not an ordinary person either. Especially with the support of her master. Once the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan had been successfully implemented, it would not matter whose family you came from. Grandpa Zhang nodded and said, "If the Tianyu Tower comes, I will kill them." When he said those words, his killing intent was awe-inspiring. He was already at the 9th level of the divine realm. He had cultivated in the pocket dimension for a long time and used divine origin pills and other precious cultivation resources. Moreover, he had entered the trial mystic realm to train. His strength was no longer what it was in the past. In the divine realm, he was also a top-notch existence. He was not afraid of the Tianyu Tower. "I will personally settle the debt with the Tianyu Tower," Heiyu said in a low voice. In the small courtyard, Chu Zan muttered to himself, "The Ji family has a long history. An ancient human king's family. I wonder if their first ancestor has already reached the Daoyuan realm." The Ji family had a long history. As for how long, even they themselves did not know. Their ancestor had been one of the peerless experts who had once led the human race to glory and occupied the central zone. Chu Zan was very curious. Was that ancestor a Daoyuan realm expert now? In the primordial land, who knew how many Dao realm experts the Ji family had, and how strong they were? How many of those human kings still existed, and how many had fallen? Among the human kings, Luo Xinbai was considered to be living a comfortable life. Moreover, his background was not simple. His master was the Daoyuan expert, Kunhe. His talent was also extraordinary. Up until now, the most miserable human king was undoubtedly Fengkong. Ha ha ha, this old man has the bearing of a heaven realm expert. Chu Tianming's wild laughter suddenly came from the ancestral residence. It was filled with pride and arrogance. Chu Zan shook his head. This old man was hopeless. Did he not just break through 2 minor realms? Was there a need for him to be so happy? After Chu Tianming broke through to the Emperor realm, he finally broke through 2 minor realms after all these years of hard cultivation. He had now reached the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. His confidence was inflated. He felt that his talent was super awesome. Chu Tianming then left the Chu family, and he wanted to go out and show off his talents. A few days later, Chu Tianming returned. He was throwing a tantrum in the ancestral residence. B****, when I break through to the heaven realm, I will definitely kill that B****. I'm so angry. The roar spread throughout the Chu family's territory. The Chu family members were speechless. What was going on with their patriarch? Why was he so addicted to roaring? Chu Zan shook his head. This old man had gone out to show off his might, but in the end, he could not defeat the other party, so he came back dejectedly to vent his anger. He was also a weirdo. Forget it, I won't help him raise his strength much in the future. Chu Zan could not be bothered with him. He continued to remain in the courtyard leisurely, waiting for the heavenly Dao laws to completely devour the northern zone. Finally, the heavenly Dao laws encompassed the entire northern zone. The entire northern Zobi underwent some changes, as did the heavenly Dao laws. Some cultivators who were struggling at a bottleneck suddenly felt as if their souls had been blessed. The bottleneck actually loosened, and they began to break through. You didn't leave the courtyard, but managed to carry out the heavenly Dao talisman plan. With a flip of your hand, the northern zone has been incorporated by the heavenly Dao laws. You have been rewarded with 36 Dao principles. Chu Zan was examining the changes to the heavenly Dao laws and the situation around the entire northern zone. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into the heavenly Dao laws themselves. He could sense every blade of grass and tree in the northern zone. It felt that, as long as he was willing, he would be able to read every single thought of the living beings of the northern zone. He could sense all of the ancient battlefields and mystic realms in the northern zone, as well as all of the concealed races. Within the ancient battlefield, the evil blood essence and chi began to spread, and the blood fiend race was born within the blood lakes. Somewhere in the northern zone, a huge ancient battlefield was trapped in a spatial seal. The blood-red spiritual power was everywhere, like an endless fog. Many blood fiends had been born, and the strongest one had already reached the heaven realm. Chu Zan also saw the earth spirit race, as well as some other small races that had once been active in the 9 zones. These races were rumored to have died out long ago. At this moment, they were struggling to survive in the mystic realms. Among these small races, the strongest were at the peak of the heaven realm, and some had even reached the divine realm. Their strength was naturally far inferior to that of the human race, and their numbers were too. Some of these races were on the verge of extinction. The heavenly Dao laws continued to improve as the living beings of the northern zone continued to comprehend and cultivate the heavenly Dao laws. It also continued to perfect itself, giving birth to new laws. Chu Zan seemed to have transformed into the heavenly Dao laws themselves. He looked down at the northern zone, immersed in the benefits brought about by the expansion of the heavenly Tao laws over the entire northern zone. One Tao principle after another was born. Within a short period of time, Chuzan had comprehended as many as 9 Tao principles. His strength was also rapidly rising. The chaotic energy was refining the Tao principles, and fusing them. At a certain moment, he broke through the 8th level of the Tao realm. After an unknown amount of time, Chuzan regained his senses. When he noticed that his strength had increased, he chuckled. This method of increasing strength was too easy. He was once again thankful for his heavenly Tao talisman plan. The heavenly Tao laws had encompassed the northern zone, and the system rewarded him with 36 Tao principles. Chuzan was very happy. The more Tao principles he had, the stronger the Tao path he would open up in the future, and the closer it would be to mimicking the actual great Tao. Many Tao realm cultivators focused on cultivating one Tao principle. At most, after each of the 36 levels of the Tao realm, they would comprehend a new one. This meant that the Taoyuan realm experts would at most have fused 36 Tao principles into one. At present, Chuzan had already far surpassed this number. The new 36 Tao principles surrounded him and enveloped him. The chaotic energy was quickly being consumed. RRO. Chuzan did not panic. He waved his hand, pulling in a ball of chaotic energy from the ancient Chaos Mountain. The 36 Tao principles began to fuse with the previous Tao principles, transforming into a miniature Great Tao. Furthermore, it was undergoing a transformation. Chuzan, who had just broken through, was once again blessed with the opportunity to break through. To be able to break through 2 levels of the Tao realm in a row was almost unprecedented. It was not that there were no precedents. After all, there were always some great opportunities that would lead to breaking through 1 or 2 levels quickly in a short period of time. 9th level of the Tao realm. Chuzan felt extremely comfortable. Breaking through and increasing one's strength always felt great. Chapter 296 The Changes in the Northern Zone. After breaking through, Chuzan's next step was to fully utilize the heavenly Tao laws in the northern zone to increase the overall strength of the northern zone. When he looked down at the northern zone, Chuzan saw many secrets hidden there. Whether it was ancient battlefields or mystic realms, none could escape his gaze. The blood fiend race in the ancient battlefield was what Chuzan valued the most. The blood fiend race was very special. They could be revived with the help of the blood-colored spiritual energy. Even if they were completely incinerated, as long as the blood-colored spiritual energy existed, new blood fiends would be born. They were practically immortal. Moreover, the blood fiend race was brutal, bloodthirsty, and violent. They were truly a race born from the calamity. The 9th great Taoyuan calamity was indeed very terrifying. With the characteristics of the blood fiend race, the living beings of the 9 zones would find it exceedingly difficult to exterminate them. Instead, they would be massacred by the blood fiend race. The living beings of the 9 zones would be wiped out. Would the great Tao calamity descend after that? As long as there was a great battle, as long as someone died, as long as they bled, there would be no shortage of blood-colored spiritual energy. Even secret techniques and secret treasures would not be able to completely purify them. This also meant that the blood fiend race would never be exterminated. Moreover, there were countless ancient battlefields sealed away. How terrifying was the condensation of blood-colored spiritual energy inside. Chuzan's expression was solemn. Although the heavenly Tao laws controlled the northern zone, he was still unable to purify the blood fiend race inside the northern zone's ancient battlefields. It would take time. If even the power of the heavenly Tao laws could not do it, how could the cultivators of the 9 zones defeat the blood fiend race? The birth of the blood fiend race was related to the great Tao and the great Tao calamity in the future. Still, the heavenly Tao laws were not weak. At the very least, the blood fiend race would be unable to cause too much trouble in the northern zone. What Chuzan needed to consider was whether purifying the blood fiend race would cause the great Tao to interfere with the heavenly Tao laws. Therefore, he turned his gaze to the origin Tao crystal. Before the heavenly Tao laws purified the blood fiend race, he needed to make some preparations. The heavenly Tao talisman appeared in his hand. Chuzan pondered for a moment before sending a few wisps of chaotic energy into the heavenly Tao talisman. He refined a few small chaos stones and integrated them with the heavenly Tao talisman. It looked as if the heavenly Tao talisman had been inlaid with a few black gems. Then, he put the heavenly Tao talisman into the origin Tao crystal. With the chaotic energy and the chaos stones, he could ensure that the heavenly Tao talisman would remain stable even if the great Tao interfered with the heavenly Tao laws. After making the necessary preparations, Chuzan poured the blood-colored spiritual energy from one of the ancient battlefields into the heavenly Tao talisman to be purified. Then, he took the purified spiritual energy and poured it into the northern zone. At this moment, cultivators who had reached the limits of the heaven realm and could not break through suddenly found that their bottleneck was loosened. These old heaven realm experts who were about to die sensed the chance to break through. They immediately started meditating as they tried to break through. In Nine Swords Mountain, 2 old heaven realm warriors were cultivating to break through to the divine realm. They had been in hibernation for a long time, but woke up in order to deal with Cao Tianyi's plans. However, the moment they saw Cao Tianyi's divine realm body, they knew that with their strength, they could do nothing. Cultivation in the northern zone became easier and easier. There were countless breakthroughs, especially for those who were stuck at bottlenecks. The strength and talent of the cultivators here had improved. The heavenly Tao laws were also improving. Chuzan looked over the northern zone, waiting for the first divine realm expert to be born under the heavenly Tao laws. The appearance of divine realm cultivators would strengthen the heavenly Tao laws greatly. The more powerful the cultivators under the heavenly Tao laws were, the stronger the heavenly Tao laws themselves would be. One had to know that the heavenly Tao laws were derived from the laws of heaven and earth. To a certain extent, they shared the same origins. As such, it was easy to integrate and assimilate the heavenly Tao laws into the laws of heaven and earth. There would be some conflict between the two, but no direct or outright rejection. This was the same for cultivators under the heavenly Tao laws. Even if they traveled to the other zones, they would not be rejected by the laws of heaven and earth there. Chuzan looked at the small races in the northern zone. The northern zone belonged to the human race, but they were not the only ones there. There were a number of small races hiding and struggling to survive inside the mystic realms, though not many of them. Chuzan decided to move all of these small races back to the northern zone. There were many types of living creatures, and it was beneficial to the heavenly Tao laws. There were few small races, especially those that were on the verge of extinction due to reproductive difficulties, who could be given proper protection. It was the same as protecting rare animals back on Earth. The small races of the northern zone felt that something was wrong, and they felt uneasy. SWR. They would encounter unknown threats after leaving the mystic realms. The biggest threat naturally came from the human race. They might not necessarily be exterminated, but there was a high chance that they would be enslaved by the human race, or even raised in captivity. It was not a good thing for small races like them. Earth Spirit Race. The Earth Spirit Race's elder looked for Ding Yu worriedly. Spirit child, the situation isn't right. What if our Earth Spirit Race is forced to return to the northern zone? You have to protect our race. You're our race's spirit child. The elder was helpless when faced with Ding Yu, this spirit child. He felt that this guy was not a good person. Don't worry, when we return to the northern zone, I, Ding Yu, will protect the Earth Spirit Race. Ding Yu patted his chest and said, after taking so many of their treasures, especially the Earth Spirit liquid brewed by the Earth Spirit Race, which was incomparably delicious, he could not allow the Earth Spirit Race to be bullied. The spirit of the Earth vein at the side also nodded and said, don't worry, the Earth Spirit Race will be fine. The elder relaxed slightly. Somewhere in the northern zone, inside the mystic realm of the winged ape race, Xiaoliang was seated cross-legged on a huge rock on the mountain peak. Lu Piaopiao stood by his side, her gaze gentle. The current Lu Piaopiao was already at the peak of the heaven realm. For her, breaking through to the divine realm was not a problem. A 3-meter-tall giant ape with a pair of wings on its back flew over. Your Majesty, there seems to be something wrong with the northern zone. Our mystic realm seems to be returning to the northern zone. You have to protect our race. The winged ape tribe leader was panicking. This human youth was extremely powerful. He had single-handedly defeated all of the winged ape tribe cultivators, including supreme realm experts. Furthermore, the winged ape tribe was extremely talented. They used rods as weapons and were extremely ferocious. Back then, they were an extremely valiant tribe. In the end, they were single-handedly beaten into submission, and immediately acknowledged Xiaoliang as their king. Chapter 297. The Terror of the Blood Fiend Race. Xiaoliang opened his eyes. There were changes in the northern zone. Had the great Daoyuan calamity begun? It should not be time yet. Then, was it related to Master? He said, don't worry. As long as the winged ape race does not become enemies with the human race, nothing will happen. I will get them to not disturb you. Thank you, Your Majesty. The winged ape leader said happily. As for rising up and restoring his former glory, the winged ape leader did not have any extravagant ambitions. He only hoped that he could keep his race alive and continue to reproduce. Back then, the winged ape tribe had been too violent and aggressive, which was why they ended up like this. Now, the winged ape leader had become much gentler and restrained. Chuzan looked at the mystic realm of the winged ape race. Xiaoliang had defeated their experts and comprehended a new spear technique derived from the staff techniques of the winged ape race. The winged ape's staff techniques were very fierce. They mainly focused on violent attacks, and even sometimes seemed berserk. However, its power could not be underestimated. Their staff techniques were like pillars that supported the sky as it smashed down, turning mountains into ashes. Chuzan felt that the ancestor of the winged apes must have comprehended the staff Tao principle. He took out the myriad races atlas and looked for information on the winged ape race. This race had existed for a very long time and had once been awe-inspiring. Although they had never ascended to the position of overlord, they were once one of the strongest races in the 9 zones. They were violent and aggressive. The winged ape ancestor recorded in the atlas had indeed comprehended the staff Tao principle and used it to sweep his enemies. He was a Tao realm expert. Unfortunately, because he was too violent and aggressive, he offended a powerful expert and was killed. After the death of their Tao realm ancestor, the fate of the winged ape race gradually declined. No more winged apes broke through to the Tao realm. Rumble. The purification of an ancient battlefield was completed. The blood-colored spiritual energy disappeared, and so did the blood fiend race. There was naturally no lack of heavenly treasures in the ancient battlefield. Even though it was the territory of the blood fiend race, there were still some special heavenly treasures. For example, treasures that greatly replenished chi and blood essence, and treasures that could temper one's body, and so on. It took 10 days to purify this ancient battlefield. This itself showed how special the blood fiend race was. Chuzan waved his hand and moved the ancient battlefield out of its spatial seal, returning to the northern zone, making it seem as if an ancient ruin had appeared. Naturally, it attracted many cultivators to look for treasures. Chuzan looked at a few small ancient battlefields. The blood fiend race had already been born inside, but their strength was still weak. The strongest had only reached the supreme realm. Chuzan decided to let his disciples learn about the blood fiend race in advance. Thus, when the great Daoyuan calamity came, they would be able to deal with it better. It would be easier for them to fight for fate. With this thought in mind, he turned his gaze to Ding Yu, Wang Luo, and Xiaoliang. Looking at Chu Pingfan, Chuzan hesitated for a moment, but decided to include him as well. Chu Pingfan would definitely fight for fate in the calamity. He was already a 3rd-level Supreme Realm cultivator. This was because when he was at the Emperor Realm, he deliberately tempered his mind. After entering the Supreme Realm, Chu Pingfan's strength would increase rapidly. After making a decision, Chuzan used the heavenly Tao laws to move Ding Yu, Xiaoliang, and Wang Luo into an ancient battlefield. Ding Yu and the other 2 were shocked. Chuzan's voice sounded at the right time. The blood fiend race is in this ancient battlefield. You can familiarize yourselves with them in advance. Also, let me remind you that, as long as the blood-colored spiritual energy exists, the blood fiend race is basically immortal. Ding Yu and the other 2 were shocked. They responded respectfully, "Yes, Master." The blood fiend race. In the ancient battlefield, the blood-colored spiritual energy was dense. Was it impossible to kill the blood fiends in here? They wanted to find a way to break this characteristic of the blood fiend race. How could they effectively kill the blood fiends? How could they defeat the blood fiend race more efficiently? Purifying the blood-colored spiritual energy was naturally one of the methods. However, the battlefield was so vast, and the blood-colored spiritual energy was so dense. How could they purify all of it? To purify it, they could use secret techniques, array formations, secret treasures, or even special pills. However, it was not so easy to purify it efficiently. Moreover, they had to evaluate the cost of purifying it in terms of the heavenly treasures consumed. To put it bluntly, it was a matter of cost. If the cost of purifying the blood-colored spiritual energy was too high, no one would be able to afford it. Ding Yu walked along the ancient battlefield and encountered a blood fiend not long after. It was not strong, and had not even reached the Emperor realm. He killed it easily. Armed with the knowledge of their ability to resurrect, Ding Yu destroyed it until there was not even a speck of dust left of its corpse. He stayed where he was, waiting for it to be resurrected. If they could come back to life even after all that, it would be terrifying. 1 day, 2 days, there was no movement at all. It was as if the blood fiend had completely disappeared. Then, on the third day, the blood fiend resurrected. Ding Yu turned the blood fiend into nothingness once more. He continued to wait. Xiao Liang and Wang Luo were doing the same. They turned their respective blood fiends into ashes and waited there on the spot. Chu Zan watched their actions and did not say anything to stop or remind them. Through the heavenly Tao laws, he could sense that the exterminated blood fiends were actually in the process of condensing their bodies once more. However, because they had been turned into ashes, it would take a long time for them to be resurrected. Moreover, Chu Zan also discovered that the resurrected blood fiends were no longer the same as the ones that died. Although they had retained some of their characteristics, they were in essence new blood fiends. After all, they did not completely inherit the memories of the previous blood fiends. The resurrected blood fiends would also be slightly weaker. Perhaps this could be considered a weakness of the blood fiend race. Thinking about it, it made sense. Infinite resurrection was already very terrifying. If it came without a price, it would be too heaven-defying. There would always be a path of life left in the great calamity. Ding Yu and the other two were waiting. Occasionally, new blood fiends would pass by or come looking for them, but they would all be turned into ashes by the three of them. As more blood fiends were killed, Chu Zan realized that the blood fiends that were being revived were actually becoming stronger after absorbing the other blood fiends that had perished. The newly born blood fiends would inherit part of the abilities of the blood fiends that had perished, and then they would combine together to become the abilities of the newly born blood fiends. Chu Zan's expression changed slightly. He realized that he still did not know enough about the blood fiend race. If he were to annihilate countless blood fiends on a big battlefield, and they gave birth to new blood fiends, how powerful would they be? Even if the blood fiend race did not have any divine realm experts, as long as there were enough blood fiends perishing in one location, divine realm blood fiends would be born. Then, was their ability to strengthen themselves like this endless? Moreover, Chu Zan thought of a terrifying question. If the blood fiends died in large numbers, would they directly give birth to Tao realm blood fiends? Was there a limit to their growth? If there was no limit, Chu Zan's scalp tingled. If there was really no limit, then the mass deaths of heaven realm blood fiends would give rise to divine realm blood fiends, and the deaths of those would give rise to Tao realm blood fiends. If those died too, would it give rise to Daoyuan realm blood fiends? Chapter 298, Prepare in Advance. Chu Zan felt that he had underestimated the terror of the 9th Great Daoyuan Calamity. The blood fiend race was probably not only the bearers of the Great Daoyuan Calamity, but also the bearers of the Great Tao Calamity. If it really was the bearers of the Great Tao Calamity, then it would be terrifying. Chu Zan had to reconsider his plans and how he could deal with the Great Tao Calamity. He would probably not be able to completely avoid the Great Tao Calamity just by relying on the heavenly Tao laws. After all, the current heavenly Tao laws were not on par with the Great Tao. Moreover, even if the 9 zones were encompassed by the heavenly Tao laws, it would still be insufficient. The terror of the blood fiend race, even if they were not the calamity-bearing race of the Great Tao Calamity, they definitely heralded the beginning of the Great Tao Calamity. Otherwise, why would the Great Tao Calamity be so terrifying? What exactly was the Great Tao Calamity like? Chu Zan did not know. He knew of the existence of the Great Tao Calamity. However, he had no way of knowing what shape or form the Great Tao Calamity would come in. The only thing he knew was that there would definitely be some anomalies in the Great Tao. Chu Zan took out the Chaos Tao mirror and stretched out his hand. This time, he used it to deduce information about the blood fiend race. Chu Zan's Chaos Tao mirror trembled and could not continue the deduction. It was blocked by a mysterious force. He immediately stopped the deduction process. From this, it was certain that the blood fiend race would give birth to Tao realm experts. However, it was not certain whether or not they could give birth to Daoyuan realm experts. If they could give birth to Daoyuan realm experts, it meant that the blood fiend race was involved in the Great Tao Calamity. It was inevitable for Tao realm warriors to face the calamity. The blood fiend race gave birth to Tao realm experts, so if the Tao realm experts of the 9 zones did not enter calamity, the 9 zones would not be able to resist the blood fiend race. Moreover, at that time, there would be special circumstances that would lure Tao realm experts into the calamity. Chu Zan tried to deduce the Great Tao Calamity, but the result was naturally blocked as well. His strength was still insufficient. If he had the strength of the Daoyuan realm, he would definitely be able to deduce it. He had to increase his strength as soon as possible. Chu Zan continued to pay attention to Ding Yu and the other 2 disciples. He would not enter calamity personally. Now that the northern zone had fallen under the control of the heavenly Tao, he would try his best not to be affected. He would stay in his courtyard in peace. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that something unexpected might happen. Therefore, Chuzan had to make various preparations to deal with any possible accidents. A great calamity was always full of variables. When the disciples entered the calamity, they would strive for fate, which would benefit him. If the disciples found a way to restrain the blood fiend race, then this great calamity would definitely become easier to handle. Daoyuan realm. If he did not reach the Daoyuan realm, he would not have enough confidence. Chuzan sighed. He hoped that the heavenly Tao talisman plan could be implemented as soon as possible and devour the other 7 zones. There was no need to devour the entire 9 zones. If he could devour the 7 or 8 zones, he would be able to reach the Daoyuan realm. He hoped that the disciples would be a little stronger and help their master raise his cultivation level quickly. Ding Yu and the others waited for half a month before they saw figures emerge in front of them. The moment they were born, they let out a furious roar and looked at them with brutal eyes. The newly born blood fiends did not retain any memories. However, they knew that the person in front of them was an enemy and they had to kill them. Ding Yu and the other 2 looked at the newly born blood fiends and their expressions changed slightly. They had become stronger. They were first-level Emperor Realm blood fiends now. If every blood fiend died, and their strength increased after they were revived, it would be too terrifying. Chuzan's voice sounded, "This is the result of the fusion of many blood fiends who died. Their strength has increased. The Heaven Realm blood fiends can fuse infinitely and give birth to even stronger blood fiends." The expressions of Ding Yu and the other 2 disciples changed drastically. If that was the case, the more blood fiends died, the more experts would be born. They would be endless then. "Master, is there no way to destroy them?" Wang Luo asked in a low voice. The rules around the calamity-bearing race also contain a trace of life force at this moment. "I'll rely on you guys to explore the method." Chuzan paused for a moment before continuing. "If it's just the great Daoyuan calamity, the blood fiend race naturally wouldn't be so terrifying. However, the blood fiend race appears to be involved in that thing beyond the great Daoyuan calamity." He did not continue. Ding Yu and the other 2 disciples felt a chill run down their spines. What was after the great Daoyuan calamity? From the tone of their master, it was likely that after the great Daoyuan calamity, they would not enter the next Daoyuan. Work hard and rise up during the great Daoyuan calamity. Strive for fate and great opportunities. I hope that you can break through to the Dao realm during this great calamity, or even. Chuzan's voice disappeared. He did not continue. Ding Yu and the other 2 understood that the great Daoyuan calamity was a great opportunity. It was an opportunity for them to ignore the restrictions of the laws of heaven and earth and quickly increase their strength. On this day, the 3 of them began to sweep through the ancient battlefield and exterminate the blood fiends. Chuzan waved his hand and moved Chu Pingfan and Yuer into an ancient battlefield. He instructed the 2 of them to explore the ancient battlefield and exterminate the blood fiend race. The ghost race was more special. Chuzan thought that the great Daoyuan calamity was also an opportunity for the ghost race to rise up. Fallen cultivators could revive as members of the ghost race. The rise of the ghost race in this great calamity was inevitable. However, they still could not deal with the blood fiends. Over the next few days, Chuzan used the myriad heavenly mirror to move Qin Ying, He Yu, Shangxing, Qianming, Hu Tianya, and Demon Buddha into an ancient battlefield. He wanted them to familiarize themselves with the blood fiend race in advance. Demon Buddha cultivated Buddhist Dharma, which had the power of purification, but to the blood fiend race, it did not have as strong an effect as they had imagined. After all, the blood fiend race was a calamity-bearing race, so they naturally had the resistance to these secret techniques of purification. Chuzan had moved his disciples into the ancient battlefield to fight with the blood fiend race to temper them and adapt to future battles with the blood fiend race. He had to discover the blood fiend race's weakness, and find a way to restrain them. He had to try to prevent the blood fiend from continuously producing stronger experts. Chuzan occasionally paid attention to the battles of his disciples. He spent most of his time preparing for the Heavenly Tao Law's expansion into the Eastern Zone. Chuzan was waiting for the right time. The bell had already rung 8 times. If nothing went wrong, the 9th time would be the time when the Great Daoyuan calamity would begin. The first zone where the blood fiend race appeared was the Western Zone, which would also be the place where the Great Daoyuan calamity would begin. In the Northern Zone, there were a few places where the spiritual energy was brewing. Here, some of the older Heaven Realm experts were trying to reach the Divine Realm. The first batch of Divine Realm experts were about to appear in the Northern Zone. Chapter 299, Gathering of the Disciples. There were many ancient battlefields in the Northern Zone. Some of them were huge ancient battlefields that had existed for a long time, which nurtured the Blood Fiend race. As expected, these would be the Blood Fiends that invaded the Northern Zone. In the 9 regions, other than the desolate ancient zone, the other 8 zones all had these ancient battlefields and the Blood Fiend race within. The desolate ancient zone was, after all, the most mysterious zone in the 9 zones, and also contained the core of the 9 zones. When he saw the ancient battlefields stuck in spatial seals, Chuzan realized that the 9 domains had actually shrunk. During the numerous great battles, many regions had been sealed into space. The Great Daoyuan Calamity was the return of these ancient battlefields and the recovery of the 9 zones. It was the 9th Daoyuan, which would return the 9 zones to their original state. Was this a cycle? Chuzan seemed to have understood something. The Great Daoyuan Calamity was a form of check and balance, for the purpose of restoration. The heavenly Dao laws began to purify the ancient battlefields. It purified the blood-colored spiritual energy inside into regular spiritual energy and scattered it throughout the Northern Zone. After purifying an ancient battlefield, it allowed the ancient battlefield to return from the sealed space to the Northern Zone. The Northern Zone was expanding. As the Northern Zone expanded, the heavenly Dao laws would too. After the purified blood-colored spiritual energy was fed back into the Northern Zone, the density of spiritual energy gradually rose. Some experts had already sensed it. They were alarmed. They suspected that the Great Daoyuan Calamity was about to arrive. In the ancient battlefield, Ding Yu looked solemnly at the Blood Fiends in front of him. They were all Emperor Realm Blood Fiends. In order to prevent the integration of the fallen Blood Fiends, Ding Yu had adopted the strategy of separating and killing them. It had indeed slowed down the birth of stronger Blood Fiends. However, they still revived in the end. In addition, once a great battle broke out with the Blood Fiends, how could one possibly separate the Blood Fiends on the battlefield? The Blood Fiends would end up merging and producing stronger experts one way or another. Ding Yu also discovered something else. If too many times Blood Fiends died, they would not fuse and give birth to a new Blood Fiend. Instead, they would be reborn as several new Blood Fiends. This meant that the Blood Fiend race seemed to have a rule that forced them to maintain the number of Blood Fiends. After all, if the fallen Blood Fiends kept fusing to create stronger experts, their numbers would gradually fall, and without numbers, no matter how strong they were easier to deal with. This rule safeguarded them from that ending. Ding Yu continued to kill them. Wang Luo and the others were the same. They were all looking for a breakthrough point in dealing with these Blood Fiends. Wang Luo even used the Blood Fiends as a material to refine pills. Shang Xing was also using his artifact refining knowledge to try and find a way to deal with it. The number of Blood Fiends in the ancient battlefield was constantly decreasing, but their strength was getting stronger and stronger. Demon Buddha walked around the ancient battlefield. Buddhist light enveloped the surroundings. His white clothes were not stained by dust, and he looked kind and gentle. He continued to purify the Blood Fiends in the ancient battlefield. In the end, Demon Buddha discovered that with the power of his Buddha Dharma, it would take thousands, or even tens of thousands of years, to completely purify this small ancient battlefield. He needed enough Buddhist monks to deal with the Blood Fiends efficiently. However, was it really effective? Would the Blood Fiends end up resisting the purification light? Would they not create a land for the revival of the Blood Fiend race in that case? The more he thought and understood, the more he realized how terrifying the Blood Fiend race was. In the secret land of Nine Swords Mountain, a powerful aura erupted. It was the same in the secret land of the Floating Flower Pavilion. In other places in the Northern Zone, powerful auras erupted one after another. They broke through the barrier of the Heaven Realm and stepped into a new realm. The first batch of Divine Realm experts under the Heavenly Dao laws was born. As the Divine Realm experts comprehended the Heavenly Dao laws and broke through, the Heavenly Dao laws were also strengthened. The Heavenly Dao laws were now expanding into the Eastern Zone. In the ancient battlefield, Ding Yu and the others were still killing the Blood Fiends, who were getting stronger, but fewer. Where they were, there were already Emperor and Supreme Realm Blood Fiends. If this continued, sooner or later, there would be a Heaven Realm Blood Fiend. Chuzan saw that the disciples were all running their own experiments. Although they had not found a way to exterminate the Blood Fiend race yet, they had found ways of dealing with them. Therefore, After a while, Chuzan used the Heavenly Dao Talisman to transport his disciples back into the pocket dimension. You are all fellow disciples. Get to know each other and exchange your experiences. Ding Yu and the others were momentarily stunned. Then, they immediately looked at Hu Tianya. This tiger was also Master's disciple. A monster. Then, they looked at Demon Buddha. He had a kind appearance and was dressed in white. However, for some reason, they felt that he was not as benevolent as he looked. In fact, he did not seem to be a good person. To put it bluntly, he was a hypocrite. Hu Tianya could not keep up appearances any longer. His fellow disciples all looked human-like. If he, a tiger, lay on the ground, would he not be lacking in dignity? He stood up and transformed into a young man with a tiger's head. My name is Ding Yu, your eldest senior brother. Ding Yu was the first to speak. He was the first disciple, so naturally, he was the eldest senior brother. Qin Ying was an unnamed disciple, which meant that he had no seniority to speak of whatsoever. Qian Ming was the youngest junior brother. After they got to know each other, under Ding Yu's suggestion, they directly entered the trial mystic realm. Everyone fought each other to familiarize themselves with each other. Each of them practiced a different cultivation technique, and it was also a good chance for them to prove themselves. Without a doubt, Qian Ming was the weakest. After all, he had just joined the sect, and his cultivation level was the lowest. After a battle, other than Qian Ming, the rest of the disciples all had solemn expressions on their faces. Ding Yu felt great pressure. This eldest senior brother was actually unable to suppress the junior disciples. Wang Luo and Shangxing were slightly weaker in terms of combat power, but their unique techniques were pretty good, which allowed them to make up for their weaknesses. Xiao Liang was even more impressive. He had never been able to defeat Xiao Liang, it was always 50-50. Unexpectedly, Demon Buddha was also very monstrous. That Buddhist light, that mighty heavenly dragon technique, was incredibly terrifying. Hu Tianya, the awe-inspiring tiger, was also incomparably powerful. There was no need to mention Qin Ying. The former Great Qin Emperor was naturally quite powerful, and Ding Yu and the others all knew this. Even though he was an unnamed disciple, his strength was not much weaker. The only female disciple, He Yu, was unexpectedly powerful. Her technique seemed to be able to control all living things that were weaker than her. It was incredibly domineering in battle, and it was like facing the edicts of an emperor. Ding Yu felt sorrowful. As the eldest senior brother, why was he unable to suppress his junior brothers and sisters? Where was his dignity as the eldest senior brother? It had to be because he had yet to break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword. He had to do it. He had to reclaim his dignity. Qian Ming was completely dumbfounded. Were his senior brothers and sister not too powerful? He did not have any ability to fight them at all. He was instantly killed by them in the trial mystic realm. Amitabha Buddha, good, good, good. It's rare for us to meet. Why don't you listen to this little monk talk about Buddhism? Demon Buddha pressed his palms together. The corners of Ding Yu and the others' mouths twitched. Monk, we are all fellow disciples. Don't do this. It won't work. Ding Yu waved his hand. Demon Buddha felt a little regretful that he did not manage to pull his fellow disciples into Buddhism. Let's talk about how to deal with the blood fiend race, Qin Ying said. My Buddhist light can purify the blood fiends, but my sword intent can also completely destroy the blood fiends, but they discussed and shared their experiences in dealing with the blood fiend race. The blood fiends can be exterminated and revived endlessly, but can we somehow use blood fiends to fight blood fiends? Perhaps by controlling them. Wang Luo pondered for a moment and made a suggestion. How can we use the blood fiends? How can we control the blood fiends? Formations and restrictions. Next, Ding Yu and the others discussed possible methods of controlling the blood fiends. Among the disciples, Wang Luo and Shangxing were the best at formations and restrictions. One of them refined formations into pills, while the other refined them into artifacts. Chuzan spent some time listening to their discussion. Then, he made secret manuals for formations and restrictions and created a scripture pavilion and placed it in the pocket dimension for the disciples to read. Since the blood fiend race will fuse after death and give birth to stronger blood fiends, we should think of a quick and effective method to disperse the blood-colored spiritual energy after a battle to prevent more blood fiends from fusing. At the same time, we should set up a formation where they are fusing and trap them so that we can slowly purify them. I think this is a more effective method. At least at the initial stage of the calamity, it is a good countermeasure. Therefore, it is necessary to set up a purifying formation. Su Shaner also joined in the discussion. After learning about the characteristics of the Blood Fiend race, she began to think about how to deal with them. Ding Yu and the others' eyes lit up. Su Shan'er's method was indeed effective and a better method. However, there were a few problems to be solved, such as the formation itself and the materials needed to refine the formation. Also, how much would be consumed to purify the Blood Fiend race and whether it would be proportional to the cost. After discussing a rough plan, the few of them split up and started to work on it. Ding Yu, Xiao Liang, and the others were thinking of ways to combine the formations and restrictions into their battle and secret techniques. They could quickly and easily set up small formations and restrictions. Wang Luo and Shangxing were studying how to set up large-scale formations. Demon Buddha was thinking about what Buddhist formations to use. Hu Tianya was thinking about some of the special tribes among the monster race that possess the power of purification and other special abilities. Qin Ying requested Chu Zan to move his brothers into the ancient battlefield and to allow him to teach them some secret techniques, including the art of formations. Chu Zan allowed it. Once again, he moved his disciples into the ancient battlefield. There, they continued to study how to deal with the Blood Fiend race. Wang Luo and Shangxing suggested that they move together. The two of them worked together to study how to control the Blood Fiends. Chu Zan was very pleased that his disciples were working so hard. Qian Ming was left in the pocket dimension to cultivate. He was the weakest, so he needed to catch up as soon as possible. The rest of the time, Chu Zan paid attention to the changes in the 9 zones, waiting for the right opportunity to extend the heavenly Tao laws into the eastern zone. The spiritual energy within the 9 zones became more and more chaotic. The divine realm experts in the desolate ancient zone were all searching for treasures and exploring places that occasionally emitted strange phenomena. Cao Tianyi was still crazy. If an unlucky person met him, that person would be killed. After everyone bought a myriad zones talisman, the divine realm experts could communicate with each other to avoid Cao Tianyi. As for trying to surround and kill Cao Tianyi again, they did not attempt it for the time being. After all, killing a lunatic was not as interesting as treasure hunting. Under Chu Zan's guidance, Ren Chang began to head toward the center of the 9 zones. With his current strength, and the trump card that Chu Zan had given him, as long as he did not meet a Tao realm expert, his life would not be in danger. He continued to explore, but had yet to reach the primordial land. Chu Zan's goal was to get Ren Chang as close as possible to the primordial land to set up some things. Ren Chang was only in the divine realm, so he could not enter the primordial lands. However, it should not be a problem for him to set up some things outside. Boom! The northern zone shook, and another ancient battlefield was unsealed. At the same time, the small races hiding in the northern zone also came out of their secret realms and returned to the northern zone. Chu Zan told the Black Moon Tower not to kill the small races indiscriminately or exterminate them. The cultivators of the northern zone were not interested in the small races. Instead, they were busy cultivating and preparing for the great Daoyuan calamity. There were other cultivators who were busy exploring the ancient battlefields. After the small races appeared in the northern zone, Chu Zan allocated territories for them, which were covered by the heavenly Tao laws. This made everyone aware that they could not kill the small races indiscriminately. Otherwise, they would be punished by the heavenly Tao laws. The small clans formed an alliance. In order to thank the heavenly Tao for its kindness, they even designated a special festival to worship the heavenly Tao. Furthermore, the small races were more active in comprehending the heavenly Tao laws than anyone else. They were filled with devotion. With the appearance of the small races, the creatures of the northern zone became more diverse. Chu Zan could sense the changes in the heavenly Tao laws, as it continued to grow stronger. The great Daoyuan calamity was drawing closer and closer. Qin Ying had already left the ancient battlefield. He led his brothers to the eastern zone and began to build an army of cultivators in preparation to deal with the blood fiends. Shangxing returned to the southern zone. He entered secluded cultivation in order to break through to the heaven realm. Ding Yu and the others had accumulated enough experience and resources. They were killing the blood fiends while waiting for the opportunity to break through. Demon Buddha returned to the demon zone and started to build an army of Buddhists. He taught them Buddhist formations to prepare for the blood fiend race. Hu Tianya had also returned to the monster zone. The first thing he did upon his return was to gather some races with special talents. Following his orders, they began to cooperate and train as they formed a large army to deal with the blood fiend race. Qian Ming was still cultivating bitterly. Dong! At a certain moment, a muffled sound spread throughout the 9 zones, and the echo did not disappear for a long time. The great Daoyuan calamity had arrived.